I was gonna say you sound like it's.
Where were you guys last night?
Sorry to hear that.
Like that to Jim?
Yeah, you might have had some good stuff.
Went outside?
Causing my cell phone.
What are you talking about?
He's my backup.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. Matters, gonna be back on something.
Oh, yeah.
Come up a couple times.
Oh, I can get loud.
Well, I can't wait for the one in my choices.
Yeah, I think I'll get started. I want to thank you all for coming out in the snow. We'll try to operate with a certain amount of dispatch and get you out soon and safely home if we can. Kind of a mix of events here. Let's start with the minutes of the 12/18 meeting. We have a motion to accept those. Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any corrections or changes?
Right here.
Plenty of room. Okay. If there are none, we can always do it after the fact. If there are none, then I would call for a vote. If you're okay with that. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
I gotta stay on those, man.
Yeah. Okay, we're beginning the budget review with the explosive K-9 program.
Thank you.
This is mostly an explanation. It's about how the program's going to be run, what kind of budgetary or financial implications there are, and how they're going to be handled. So I appreciate you coming and explaining it through those two.
No, thank you for having me back regarding it. I hope everybody got pretty much a summary on December 26th and a breakdown of the budget. And I know you guys are pressed for time tonight, especially with the weather, so I guess I'll lay it out there to see if there's any questions from anybody on the board regarding how we put out the budget and what we're looking at for year expenses going forward. We not only did the 2020 budget regarding getting the program started, but we also went to 2 years after that. And in calculation with the numbers that we have, we can actually go all the way up to 2025. Just in January, for the first quarter donations, we got a promise of $750, as well as another $1,000 to get this program started, get the program going. I guess my big concern is, in our budget, we do have a donation line, but with that donation line, I want to be able to carry over funds each year to support this program. And these are restricted donations based on the specific program. So we looked at a couple of different options. One of them was the revolving account, and then it seemed to be that the trustee account would be the best option for it.
Talking about the town trustees.
Yeah, the town trustees to cover that fund. So if we want to review the budget, or if you saw anything that stuck out to you that was a concern, hopefully I can address it.
Chief, excuse me. Chief, I just had a question. It's my understanding that you actually have cash in hand.
We do. We have cash in hand, and we also have in-kind donations right now. One of the in-kind donations is equipment for the cruiser. The cruiser, it's not going to be specifically for the K-9. It's going to be a multi-purpose use. So when Officer Wood is not with the K-9, the vehicle still can be used on regular patrol.
So extensive or potentially, you have the cash now to, who knows how long the dog will live, but potentially for the dog's life.
Well, right now, looking at the numbers, and a lot of the numbers regarding the training and the vet care, we put it at a high level with just in case anticipating something happened. So we put that at a little higher level. The training's gonna fluctuate. The training specifically in Connecticut, but it fluctuates from states. So instead of going to Connecticut for quarterly training, he could be going to Massachusetts, Maine, or New Hampshire. So obviously it's gonna be cheaper for travel expenses, or if he has to stay over for the night. We do have the cash in hand to carry it over to 2025 right now.
Okay, as I understand it, that there won't be a specific line item for the K-9 program in the budget as it is
Correct.
now. The reason being that, and correct me if I'm wrong, most, the cost specific to the K-9 will be covered by these contributions, which will be managed by the trustees of the trust fund, so that the trustees will get the money, they will give it to the town, when the police department requests it, they will give the money to the town cashier, the town, what's her title specifically? The finance director. She will write the checks to the various vendors or causes you need, so they will be a record and a control about how those contributions are spent. I think that's important, for all sorts of reasons, just beginning with the IRS.
Sure.
No, absolutely.
I have a
Yeah.
question about the account that it's gonna go into. Is it interest bearing? I mean, will it make interest if we have cash?
It
in
will,
that
it
time?
will be, I can speak as one of the trustees, it's an interest bearing, it's an investment account.
Yeah, but still, it's
Yeah.
gonna earn something.
Yeah, and then, it's very much like the library, and then the cemetery, then a chunk is paid off to them, when they need it.
Thank you.
A couple other questions that came up last meeting. I think a lot of it was overtime and how that, I think, Brandon, you might have brought that up, is how it's gonna affect the overtime budget. So I'm gonna have sole discretion regarding whether that dog's deployed after hours, which would require overtime cost. I think it's gonna solely depend on the situation. I know other contracts, in reviewing other contracts with K-9 programs, they alter their schedules to make things meet, that way it doesn't fall into the overtime issue. So those are things we're looking at, we've looked at, that we can do.
Good, on that subject, for our mid-year review and ongoing, and that'll be in September, if you, you have police logs and good records,
Yes.
if you could give us a list of when that dog is performing out of town.
Oh, absolutely.
Performing duties out of town, then we know what, because the officer's salary still comes out of the town line item budget.
Mhm.
So when the dog is in the officer doing service out of the town of Newington, then we'd like a list of that, so we have a sense of what the impact is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And as we mentioned before, you've got an overtime budget, and you've got a labor budget, and you have to do a budget this year. So, despite the dog program, you still gotta come in, in that budget. For town money, is that clear?
Yeah, I get.
Yeah, I'm not talking about donations now.
Come in within our budget for the K-9.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
No.
absolutely.
Not to come up with a K-9.
The overtime.
The overtime.
Oh, for the over, okay, I got you.
Okay.
So regardless of adding a K-9 exclusive dog, that the overtime budget would still remain the overtime budget. It's not
Yeah.
Right, and then we'd get a report of when the dog and the officer were serving out of town.
Correct.
There have been cases in the past, like we've had to do with major storm type disasters, ice storm and stuff like that, where FEMA or somebody reimbursed the town some of their expenses. Is that, if this is in an homeland security type issue, is there a possibility you could bill somebody to get some of that back? Or you-
I would definitely have to look into that to see without making a definitive answer to that.
I mean, it's just a phone call, one thing, but I mean, if you mobilize, you know.
Well, it depends on the service.
Just
Yes.
what-
We're obviously concentrating on our town in the seacoast area. We're not gonna be going to Berlin, New Hampshire, or western part of the state doing any programs. If they call us and they want to reimburse us for it, that's a possibility.
I mean, it could be a homeland security type issue, I
Yeah.
don't think it
Any other questions?
Well,
Yes.
I'd like to sort of present like a worst case scenario. If, and it's about the overtime, so if, you find that you are, coming close to going over the overtime budget, what safeguard do we have that you won't, I guess is what I'm saying. So there's monitoring it, which is great, and I think that's gonna be critically important, and that's in theory how you can kind of make sure that you can prepare if your overtime's getting close to where the budget is, so that you can do other things, so you don't go over it. But I guess, what assurances do we have that you won't?
You know, let me just propose something, it might be that if he exceeds a line item, he has to go to the selectmen. What I would like to task the selectmen, if that becomes the case and it's because of the dog, that we review the program.
Absolutely.
So I'm putting it kind of in your corner to manage this, because he can't exceed his overtime without going to the selectmen and explaining why. And then you can have a meeting too, if it gets to be a real issue, I'll call another budget meeting.
I think that's a very reasonable request, and I don't believe the other two selectmen would mind that at all.
No
I think
problem.
they would agree with that.
No problem.
You get to speak for them, Amy.
But I wanna look out there too. What are they gonna say to the other two?
Yeah, I think that's part of your overall responsibility. This is a new facet, but it still falls into supervising and managing the overtime. But that was, that's certainly a good point.
Chief, one of the other main reasons for having you back was to talk about the structure and how this is actually gonna roll out. Did we definitively decide that it's a trust fund? Specifically earmarked?
Yes, yeah, the town attorney is recommending that it be a trust fund, and all of the private donations can be placed in it, but it's still under town control.
There are several trust funds that the town supervises under the trustees of the trust funds. So this would be one more of those. And there is a procedure, and so I'm comfortable with that. I think that's worked for others.
This wouldn't be one where all interest only can be spent, this would be like a revolving account.
Yeah. I think it'd be a revolving account. You would need to stay appraised of how much money is in the account. Because you've got to make this last, so to speak, and you've got to raise new money possibly to replenish that.
Correct. We're seeing a lot of positive reaction regarding, obviously, with the donations. And there are other places we can reach out to. Starting off, this is what we got starting off, and we thought it was a big success with the amount of money we got up front. And we just gotta continue that, can we not?
I think it's good. I think it's a good initiative, and I think you mentioned about it as one of the things we can offer in terms of industrial development. That Newington provides a whole range of services. This is one that no other town has, so that's good. Dog could be a good salesperson.
Last one, kind of Jen's worst case scenario thing. So you do have a contract with Officer Wood.
Yeah.
And it's for how many years?
So it's in our policy with any special assignments that you have. So we have officers that are involved with CERT, Seacoast Emergency Response Team, as well as Granite Hammer, the drug enforcement with Rockingham County. So this contract is unique because it's gonna be the life of the dog. So 7 years to the life of the dog. So he can't leave. It's not as if he gets this great opportunity to leave because he's got an explosive detecting canine. The dog doesn't go with him because this is mainly donated based program. So it's not a federal program where he's getting the dog where he could leave the PD and take the dog.
Okay. And there's like a kind of a unspoken agreement between police departments that nobody will hire somebody who's under agreement with you in this police department?
Pretty much. That number one, that would be, yeah.
It wouldn't be good.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, worst case scenario, Officer Wood's no longer with the department. Is there a plan for what you do with a canine that necessarily you don't have the expertise for anymore?
we would train another trainer with the K9, which they can do with explosive dogs. This isn't like a patrol dog that, or a drug dog specific for patrol, that they're out there 24/7, and, granted, Wood's gonna be with them 24/7, but there's different patrol techniques that they do with these dogs. This dog will be able to be trained into another officer if Officer Wood decided to leave.
Now, Officer Woods is being trained by the town of Newington, or is it trust fund expense that's training him?
No, it's just like regular training that we send anybody to.
Okay, so that extra training you get is paid by the town of
Yeah.
Newington?
So the training for this, the training itself is free, that he
Okay.
goes to. The expenses would come out of, because it's in Connecticut, for the traveling costs and, lodging, thank you.
Now, did he sign an agreement? Oftentimes when people get training, they sign an agreement that they'll serve a certain amount of time. Did he sign anything like that? or
Well,
is that-
When you come into the police department, you got a 3-year agreement anyways
All right.
that you sign.
Okay.
So, we're going off with our policy, that,
So he's
dog.
he's relatively new.
No, he's been here.
Okay, but you said the 3-year policy.
So when somebody new comes in, they sign a 3-year contract with
Yeah.
us, that they have to stay within 3 years.
Yeah.
He's approaching his 3rd year.
Okay. So he could live.
He's not going.
He won't be the dog. All right.
He is committed to the life of the animal, though.
He's committed to the life of the animal, and I'll tell you,
He'll become so attached to the animal, he won't wanna leave.
yeah, he's got relatives in town. He likes his town. His wife doesn't want him to go anywhere else, so.
He ain't going nowhere. His wife don't want to go nowhere, he don't want to go nowhere.
Any other questions on the dog program? I don't want to take too much of his time.
Veterinary services, you said there's 20% off, who's doing that?
25% off, so it's the veterinary clinic, believe, behind, I'm not sure which one it is. It's in
Local around
Portsmouth,
here?
yeah, it's in Portsmouth, it's right behind, Kmart.
Oh, yeah, the surgeons, they have everything.
Yeah, they take care of,
It's a
police and
24
military canines.
And they're 24 hours.
Yeah, and plus we have a bunch of vets that live in town, which services would be beneficial to the program.
Yeah. I am aware.
But they wouldn't need glasses.
That would be a.
Any other questions on the program?
You got pet insurance, I know, so that's health insurance?
Yes.
For the dog.
I don't,
Oh, that's a great question. Is the dog going to have pet insurance, so then when they get the veterinary services, it's through their pet insurance? Or, I hate to use the word pet insurance,
No,
dog is not a pet, but, in this
I
case.
think it depends on what the procedure is for the dog, what's gonna be
But
covered
there
under
will
the
be
insurance.
insurance on the dog.
Yes, and that's calculated.
And that's part of the bill.
Yeah.
Good.
it's all in
A
your
lot
trust
of pet
fund.
insurance has deductibles and some are better than others.
The fund is in good financial health, though. I mean, there's enough, like you said, there's enough money there to, without another donation, to feasibly get through 2025. So.
I suspect that he's probably a good fundraising tool, too.
He probably doesn't, yeah,
Probably.
Toys for Tots, he's gonna be a real winner out there.
Probably, sounds like a better business. Are we happy with this? I don't know necessarily that we need a vote. I would like to say that we discussed the matter and we're satisfied that the proper procedures for funding this through a trust fund managed by the town trusts is appropriate. Are we in accord with that, and can we put that in the minutes?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Not what I said. Okay, good, well, thanks very much, I appreciate it. This is a great initiative, I look forward to meeting with you all.
Yes,
Sorry.
Chief, when you get the dog?
Training's coming up, so, Connecticut's gotta go pick it up in New York. As soon as we hear they're ready to go. 30 days? Less than 30 days. Is that right? Is that good? Thank you very much.
All right, we'll switch over to the fire department. And, put these chairs here.
Why don't you slide down?
The same Okay, if you, on our agenda, I wanted to take the fire department warrant articles first. This is big money, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Sure.
I wanted to have our discussion fresh.
It's
and
too
make sure we
hot.
get this done
Can we turn it
properly,
on?
before we actually tackle the budget, which is a little more straightforward in my view. Just to remind everyone here, by budgeting law, the budget committee is required to get advice and assistance from the board of selectmen in terms of creating a budget. Beyond that, it is our option, and we've always done this, to seek additional information directly from the various departments. If they so choose, they are not required to provide that information, only the selectmen. This is why we always work on the selectmen's budget, the selectmen's recommendation, and we go from there. So what I want to do now is take the fire department articles, and sort of discuss them one by one and see if we can come up with either the selectmen have made a recommendation for or against all of these fire department articles. So we need to do is review these articles and see how we would recommend. Once again, this is not really a final recommendation, everything we vote here is dependent on the public hearing. So if you look, I think there's something draft budget warrant articles.
It doesn't have,
This,
it doesn't say draft on it.
the yellow highlighted items are the actual draft warrant articles for the fire department.
I have them written twice, but none of them have the color, the red or the yellow.
They were in the packet and I think we
These
got
are,
right
these
to
are
the right.
That's the
these
one I
are
pulled
just,
out.
these are just the
Full
fire
tab on it.
departments, you want the towns.
The full
No,
time.
not the,
Chicken's got it right there.
okay, that's
Yeah,
it.
okay, good. All right, the first one is,
Thank you.
Article 2, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $640,000 to purchase a new fire engine. So, I'm gonna try to knock these off with a motion, and what I'd like you to do is just move the selectmen's recommendation. We'll discuss it, if we wanna go another way, we can. We just need to open that for discussion. So if someone will make that motion. Okay, is there a second? All right. So the first one is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $640,000 to purchase a new fire engine to replace engine 5. This article is not recommended by the selectmen. I'd like to start with the selectmen and ask why.
Thank you. I would like to clarify and provide our rationale for not supporting that. When we received the fire department's operating budget and warrant articles, when you combine those two, it would represent $1.12 on the tax rate by itself, approximately $1.12. What's happening now with the fossil fuel plants devaluing their tax base paid to the town, that $1.12 would translate to a $500,000 increase in the two power plants' taxes, property taxes. What that would do, one, would certainly jeopardize our tax advantage. Two, it would certainly impact economic development. What I'm concerned about, if we were to pass an increase in property taxes like that on to business and industry as well as residents, right now, we are facing, could very likely go to court because the two companies have filed abatements. And as you know, fossil fuel plants, especially along both coasts, Atlantic and Pacific, have been going down in value at a rapid rate because of wind energy and solar energy coming in.
I'm gonna stop you there before we get too complicated.
Okay.
So basically, if I may summarize, you feel it's too much to take in one fight.
Yes, it is.
Do you believe that eventually we'll need a new fire engine?
Well, to address that further down, we have recommended adding money to the account for purchasing a new fire
So
engine.
I'm looking at Article 5, you're recommending $100,000 into
Yes.
that account, instead of the $642,000 to buy it outright. this
Correct.
coming year.
Right now in that account, John, there's 176,000. We add the 100, we would have a 276,000 balance this year, well on our way to buying a new truck.
What fund is that?
That's
Number
quarter of the
5,
way,
number 5.
2/3 of the way.
Replacement vehicle number.
We're recommending
You know, I'm.
No.
100,000.
One third,
Just over a third.
1/3 of the way.
So,
276.
now, just while we're on that subject of Article 5, the leapfrog, but that was intended also for ambulance?
No,
Separate.
Separate, that's a separate.
Separate,
Yes,
that fund is separate?
yes.
The ambulance itself, ambulance replacement and equipment, major medical equipment, completely separate.
Okay.
I guess the question is now, if we accept the selectmen's recommendation, then we're going to have to address funding the fire engine somewhere else, and probably in Article 5. And whether 100,000 is enough, or we wanna put in more, that may be something of a question. Do you mind if I'm gonna ask the chief, if you've got some reflection on the timing here? This is,
Yep,
I understand what the selectmen are saying, though, a lot of money up front.
Oh, absolutely.
Is there an option?
So this was put in as a placeholder and a awareness of, this vehicle needs to be replaced.
Okay.
How badly does this vehicle,
I'm sorry?
how badly does this vehicle need to be
So the-
replaced
so
in one
the-
time frame?
So the max life of a fire truck of this style is 25 years.
Okay,
Next year, it will be 25 years.
okay.
So, but what I am proposing, so the issue of, if I don't tell everybody what's going on, and I wait till I actually need it, you guys are gonna be like, why didn't you tell me 3 years ago, or 2 years ago, or whatever. So this was put in as a placeholder.
Okay.
I am 100% on board, not funding it at all.
Okay.
What I would like to do is take the next year,
Mhm.
and the fire department is putting together a committee to come up with a better solution for this, whether it's, like with the current engine 2 that we have, I think we have one more payment left on it for this year, or whatever, I believe it's paid off this year. Because we roll into another lease purchase, and I believe we pay like around $50,000 or $59,000 a year right now for engine 2. Whether we roll into something with that, and then that account of vehicle replacement, maybe that changes, and maybe we don't have to stuff $100,000 into it every year, or, and we just keep rolling into that we have a set amount per year, that we just make into payments, and as soon as the new engine will be paid off, then we can put it towards something else, and maybe if there's years that go by that we don't,
Alternative
Pay-
use programs.
then we put it back into the account.
Yeah, okay.
Because the problem is that I can come up with the best solution for vehicle replacement right now as we sit, and next year, the potential is, we don't have the money this year, but we can pay 3/4 of it. Well, that just blew your whole system out of the water. So I believe with the maintenance that we've been doing on it, that it will last hopefully another 2 years, because even if we were to order it today, it's about 16 months for the turnaround to get it delivered. So if we can push it off the next year, do our committee work on it, come up with a better solution than trying to drop 640,000. The only thing we have to be careful of is vehicles like this, 5% a year across the board is an increase for cost. So that's the only downside of this.
I appreciate the ask up front and build the case and all that kind of stuff, but you have a warrant article here for $640,000 that's gonna be voted on.
So warrant articles aren't done, I will pull it.
It's gonna withdraw.
I'm gonna
You're gonna
withdraw.
withdraw this
Yes,
one. So we don't even really have any.
No, but my big thing was, I wanted to talk to you about it, bring you up to
Sure.
speed, but I also wanted to hear the selectmen's
I was just to have a conversation about the
exactly,
need for it.
exactly, I will need it.
How much money have you been averaging putting into this the last couple of years?
There wasn't a dime put into it last year,
Wasn't?
and because right now,
That's what we're at.
before we go over the other stuff, this account is combined, it's
Right,
fire department replacement and repair.
right.
just on the repair side, we spent $90,000 last year. Repair, purchase stuff of last year, $90,000 out of that account. So,
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, if I could. So the $90,000 was that the 44,000 that you spent on engine 2 is part of that?
there was
90,000?
44 on engine 2.
Okay, but that's a lease purchase, like you were talking.
No, that
Oh,
was
it's not.
repair. So
Right,
the pump
no,
broke
I know
off.
that, but the way that the town,
That had nothing to do
We
with
have
repair.
one account, so we,
I'm asking if engine
Is-
2
is-
is a lease purchase.
Yes.
Right, is it
Yeah.
owned
It is.
in terms of lease purchase?
Yes.
It's lease
Yes.
purchase,
Okay,
yes.
Yes.
alright.
Yeah.
So I guess when moving forward, when we talk about, you know, what we're gonna do about engine 5, I mean, I guess my next question would be, alright, if we're gonna do a lease purchase and we're gonna spend X number of dollars and then we're spending more on repairs on top of that,
Right.
that's concerning.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay,
So yes, that's my plan anyways, is to withdraw that.
okay.
I actually had talked to these guys a couple days ago, and if it was desperate and not having a front 640,000, you could bond it for 5 years at about 140 a year. If you took some of it out of the account that's already there, you probably could cut it down to about what was supposed to be put in there.
It would have to show on the warrant would have to show that that's a bond.
Oh, yeah, no, you'd have to do the
And
2/3
you
in the public
need a
hearing.
2/3 vote, but yeah, instead of a lease program, you can
If
do a
you could,
bonding
yeah.
program, essentially, you're shopping for an interest rate that's different from what the value is.
You could, but the problem, in my opinion, with the bond is what we did with the library, and then that money, when the bond was paid off, never, I don't believe went back to lower the tax rate, so there's a risk to that.
Yeah, I don't know where it went, but.
We don't, so I'm a little leery of bonding.
Right, and the other thing too is, I wanted to make sure we do our due diligence and homework on this end. And I know it's been brought up as far as the bond stuff, that it's not very good for depreciative items as well. You know, it's good for buildings and that type of stuff. So I mean, I wanna do our due diligence and homework over the next year and come back here with a better plan, but this was honestly just a placeholder and discussion piece.
Okay. What I would do then is ask the vote that we concur, to not recommend, which is what the motion is. And then we can pick this up again on Article 4, this same discussion, but then there's nothing in between about an addition. So if people are ready, I'm gonna ask for a vote, and this vote would say to sustain the selectmen's recommendation not to recommend it. So we're not recommending Article 2. And from what it sounds like, it's gonna be withdrawn anyway, but I'd just like to go on record. So could I have a vote on that? All in favor of not recommending Article 2?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, fine. I'm gonna just move, cause I'm in order here. Article 4 is to raise $140,000 for the purpose of building a fire station addition. Now, this one is recommended by the selectmen.
Chairman, I have 125.
I'm sorry, did I say 140? It's 125. Why is it there? Maybe the chief, you can explain why we need this addition?
So, we have a list of issues with the fire station. One of them being is the space needs. We are very cramped for space, and actually, since the last time we met, we had some, like Kevin Kelly, we had pseudo-partial ceiling collapse on the bunk room side from storage being up in the attic area above that area. So when they did renovations back whenever they were done to take out the old vault safe that was on the police department side, it didn't get reframed correctly. So there was partial collapse going on. So what we ended up doing was we took down over 100 boxes, storage boxes of old files and paperwork, which we're going through right now, so we can make a list of what we need to destroy and get rid of correctly, because there's some stuff with personal stuff to go back almost 30 years worth of paperwork. So anyways, we took all that out, we cleaned up there. It's no longer a collapse hazard. The structure's settled back up to where it could be, should be. So part of the other issue is that with the cancer awareness and the cancer prevention is to have what they call a negative pressure space. So essentially, it's like when you go into your bathroom, turn the ceiling fan on, you take a shower, the steam doesn't go out the room, it goes out through the vent. Same thing, when the gear off gases, and the way it sits now, it's out in the apparatus space, so there's vehicle exhaust, there's generator, small pool exhaust that gets on, there's the dust, there's that type of stuff. And then they're just generally absorbing whatever's around them. So if we put it into a negative pressure area, there's less likelihood of one, it's gonna come out to the floor and to the members, but then it's also gonna not get as dirty because it's gonna be in its own area under negative pressure. So we had brought forth, we had Shannon come in from, I call it TMS, architecture, that the town brought with us. And Shannon came over, we talked about a bunch of stuff, went over our list of issues that we have with the station, the insulation, there's no insulation in the ceilings, some of the electrical, there's asbestos. The bathroom on the public side is ADA compliant, space needs and that type of thing. So we went through a bunch of stuff. He came up with a proposal to add on the back far corner a 15 by 30 space. One story, essentially what it would be is a negative pressure room and to move the washer and dryer in there and the gear extractor, which is a washer for the gear itself. It's heavy duty, that type of stuff. So adding that room, bringing all 3 bathrooms up to ADA compliance, some asbestos mitigation, but we weren't sure how deep it was gonna go, and a couple other things. He came up and said, Martha, Chairman Connors and Kevin Kelly were all in this meeting, and Lieutenant Moynihan, we're all in this meeting, and he said pretty much that it's gonna be between $125,000 to $140,000 ballpark. And he said if we spend more than $400,000 on that building total at all, don't do it, it's not worth it, get rid of the building. So the only, because he looked around at the options, whether we could do this, do that, add a second floor, expand or do whatever. He said we don't have the room, we don't have the layout, we don't have whatever, and even if we put all this money into the building, it's not gonna be fiscally and feasibly worth it. So as we go down further through on the warrant articles, you'll find that I've asked or requested for $25,000 for a needs assessment from a third party that comes in and pretty much reviews and goes over the entire fire department. Top, bottom, policies, procedures, staffing, equipment, manning, building, everything. It's $25,000. But essentially when that report is done, it will create my master plan for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I can start going off of that. And to be honest with you, I would rather not do the addition and fund it and save the money. Get the study done and then see what that says. So, but I would ask for some money because Lieutenant Moynihan and I were looking around today. We can make that public bathroom ADA compliant for probably less than $5,000. And as far as the storage room, I could frame up a negative storage room with plywood and 2x4s and a vent and a little bit of electrical for probably less than a couple grand. I would rather do those little Band-Aid things right now, not dump much money into that building at all. We need a new roof. The new roof's $55,000. But like I said, there's no insulation in the ceiling over there. So if you start looking at the money that we spend on gas to heat that station compared to like the PD or over here, we're above, we're ahead. Because the heat's always running. So honestly, I wouldn't spend the money on the addition. I don't think, at least right now, I don't think it's worth it. I would rather get the study done and see what we actually fiscally feasibly need, because I would really hate to throw money away for nothing. Or that much money for nothing.
Mr. Chairman, if I may speak to that, I think we need clarification from the architect, because when the architect met with the selectmen, that information never came forward that the building is not really equipped for the addition. So before we go any further, I would suggest the architect be consulted again, because obviously there's some misunderstandings here.
I'm just gonna rebut with you because I can assure you Lieutenant Moynihan and I were sitting right there, you were not at the meeting. and that did come up, that he did say that he looked at the other side of the building, going up to 2 stories on either side, trying to expand it, there's no footprint, there's no room, it's not worth
All
the
due
dollars.
respect, EJ. The architect also reported to us, so I think there's a question out there that should be answered.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend, because we don't do a final vote till public hearing, tabling this until more information could come back. And maybe lower numbers, what it sounds like, and then people need to talk some more.
Sure.
And then maybe it'd be 25,000 instead of 125. So it sounds like we don't have enough.
No, that's a good idea.
Perfect.
we've got a motion to table this until we have more information.
Perfect.
So,
Thank you.
and you guys, you got a second? There's a you also have a motion, I think, a
Yes.
second,
Second.
okay.
Is it-
Any further discussion on tabling it?
Yeah, does it affect the conversation to know whether or not the building can sustain $125,000 addition or not?
Well, if we vote the article and the building can't sustain it, then it's either wasted money or we don't spend it.
The plan that you have for 125 to 140 is something that the building can sustain. It's just there was the other options that you couldn't look at because the building couldn't sustain it, right?
It's like, correct. So the only thing that was being done under that 125 to 140 was literally updating the bathrooms, adding that 15 by 30 addition. That's it.
Actually, though.
And he even said in that
we need
meeting that,
clarification.
because I asked him, because he was gonna bring all 3 bathrooms up to ADA compliant. So there's one on the public side and then there's 2 on the, the bunk room side, where the public theoretically shouldn't be. So there shouldn't be anybody over there, so we shouldn't have to update those to ADA compliant bathrooms. So I asked Shannon that, why do we have to update these to ADA compliant when the public's not really allowed over there? He said it was for resale.
Nice.
So when we go, if you were to go to get rid of the building, they would already be brought up to speed.
So should we look for the clarification from that architect?
Or-
That's the same architect.
I would suggest we speak with the architect first before we go any further.
That's
4
why,
weeks till public hearing.
yeah, I think the, you know, the motion is still valid to table this. I'd like to get it resolved. We're either gonna put the money into the building this year or we're gonna come up with a different solution.
Mr. Chairman,
Uh,
Mr. Chairman, may I say something on this? The selectmen voted to put this money in because there was an urgency 2 years ago, that they needed a certain room
Yeah.
for the cancer, for the defueling, the cleaning, and that's why we proceeded on this, because to us, as explained on the last 3 budgets I've been here, that this was an essential thing for the life and safety of the firemen. That's why we proceeded. And now, this is the first time I heard that they wanna pull it out. I mean, so, this isn't fair to be playing a game like this.
Well, it's confusing.
So,
at least.
I'm not,
You're not pulling one.
We're
I'm
not-
pulling
Wait a minute,
this.
hold on, let me manage this. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm not
EJ.
pulling this, I'm not pulling the thought of we don't need it, we need it. But if I can construct a Band-Aid temporary one for now, for cheap money, as a
That'll be
Band-Aid,
done
the
in a
problem
year.
is that Band-Aids turn into permanents around here. So if I can build a temporary one, which is still gonna chew up space in the station, until we figure out if it's even worth doing, I would rather do that.
Okay.
Does
I'm
that
not- I'm
mean,
not-
does that mean that the fires would still have the protection of, event?
Yes, yep. We could still make it a temporary negative pressure room.
Would that be able to be done on a trailer? Or something that doesn't take up your space, so you can use that space?
No, it needs to be a
something else?
constant,
Yeah.
it needs to be a
I think-
temperature regulated room.
I think we're getting into the weeds here. This is a bit of a dilemma. I can almost see where this is going, and I don't like it. That's a $10 million bond for a new fire station, which ain't gonna happen.
Yep.
So, I hate to say this, but sometime later, this town's gonna have to wake up.
Well,
That building has outlived its life for the fire department. It's time that police department's got a brand new building, the library got an addition, new highway garage.
you want yours.
No, it has nothing to do with
Chairman
that.
It's nothing to do with that, but.
You also are the only member who's been on this board for very long that has been replacing engine after engine after engine with new and fancy, this is a good replacement because it's cheaper and we get money
The
on
only
this.
engine I've been on the board to replace was engine 2.
Okay, let me back this up now. I don't wanna get too far afield. But,
Not
right now, we've got,
Not fungible.
we've got a motion to table this until we decide whether we're gonna do the $125,000 fix or a cheaper fix.
And meet with the architect, please.
And, yeah, and meet with the architect, and that's, we're not the building committee, you know, that's up to the selectmen and the engineers. But, you ready to vote on that? Table this, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's move on to the next one, and we'll deal with that one later. Okay, the next one is Article 5, and that's the replacement account for a fire engine, right? And the selectmen are recommending putting 100,000, and there's 276,000 in there now.
There's
176.
I'm sorry, 177, it'll be 276, 100,000 now. In lieu of not funding the new truck out front,
Mhm.
how much money do you need now to sort of keep this viable? Is this gonna help?
So I guess for me, we're kind of starting at the bottom and working up
Yeah.
the other way, because as far as, I guess we need to talk about whether we're gonna split the two accounts first, and then figure out whether we wanna put in.
Repair account and then.
Yeah, separate the replacement and the repair accounts.
The selectmen have supported splitting the two accounts.
Okay,
That would,
so,
that would be my opinion. Is this still listed as a repair or is it separate?
It's just a replacement, and you'll see the repair further on.
Okay, so that's a replacement account.
Did the funds get split?
Adapted or?
The funds would stay with the replacement account,
So what are
and
we gonna do
repair
about
would
repairs?
start at 0.
Is that in here?
so what I originally proposed is that if we were to split it, the money that's in the account now, the combined account, stays with the replacement, so that 175 would stay with the replacement, and then I asked for 100,000 to go into the repair side going forward. So I didn't ask for any money into the replacement side, but I asked for 100,000 into the repair side.
So how are you gonna come up with $600,000 in 1 year to replace engine 5? That's what we're talking about?
So I came up and went through and created a spreadsheet to look at how we could pay essentially cash for everything, nothing gets bonded, nothing gets leased. To start out that whole process, I need $750,000 for the first 5 years. That's never gonna happen. So if we're constantly gonna be behind in these capital accounts, you might as well just pay minimum and just lease purchase. It's hard to pay both sides, but if I can come in here consistently that I need $75,000 or $80,000 or whatever every single year, it's even across the board, it's even, you know, I don't get the ebbs and flows like we've been doing.
Will it protect the tax rate too?
Well, that's the hope, is that if the ebb and the flows go away, that it doesn't happen. And then in the years that we don't have a payment possibly, then that would possibly, you know, in addition, go into that account or whatever, but.
So I mean, right now, we're not, I think it's probably a good idea at this point to split the repair account
Mhm.
and the capital reserve account. Because repairs are unpredictable. So you need that money. A capital reserve account for replacement should be predictable, and that's what Chief White is trying to do. So that, as you said, we know what our replacement cycles are, and we put in the money in borrowing, totaling the vehicle somehow, where it's not worth repairing. You know, those should be predictable.
Correct.
It's just a matter of, yeah.
The only devil's advocate I have there is, you know, the other side is, no, if we spend too much money on repairs 1 year, if we're budgeting for $50,000 in repairs 1 year, and that year it's $99,000, well, I guess we're holding on to that truck for another year. I would be,
Well,
if I was personally budgeting, that's what I would say, right? Something gives and it's not the taxpayer. So I would say, no, you know, the only opposite opinion is it should stay in the same account. And when that account gets to the amount of money that we need in order to purchase a new unit, that's when you get it. It's not necessarily a needs and wants thing, it's put it in the budget.
yeah, I don't know that it's necessarily incompatible. A repair account is probably a good idea, I think we all agree with that.
I personally probably agree with you. I'm just saying the only other perspective to that is that there's one pot, there's one sum of money that is for vehicles, and if we overspend on fixing one, well, it's going to cost, maybe it's a 12-month fiscal cycle before we get the money back. It does seem a bit subjective of when, for instance, engine 5 has to be replaced. So, you know, what if the answer is, what if it's just no, you have to wait?
Yes, if I may add something.
Okay, yeah, sure, go ahead.
Help me out, Ted. Over the last several years, there have been major repairs and major equipment replaces that have come forward to the selectmen that were not in the budget.
Yep.
And
Back
we
in-
funded them.
many
We
years.
made sure that the emergency equipment and material was properly funded. They did not go without. And putting $25,000 in the repair, we would not address a repair item that involved life safety. We would.
The history of the combined repair and replace account was always that the majority of it wound up going to repairs. And the question always became, we were saving to make the purchase, where did it go? By separating them, you clarify, as you say, you protect the purchase account. It can't be touched. The repair account will clearly delineate what repairs cost.
That's good.
I would also, I could point out in terms of, that every year is a different budget year. And it's, you know, it's the power of the budget committee to either recommend a certain amount goes in or not. And what Brandon is saying is that if you have a heavy repair account one year that exceeds what the budget, then you may have to stretch out your replacement cycle a year to make up for that. We've got to find the money somewhere.
There's also the inverse, where money may be left in the account. You know, don't automatically assume
sure.
it is going to be
Oh, yeah.
utilized, and if it isn't, it stays there.
That's correct. If you don't need to replace the equipment at 25 years, if it's got another 2 years, heck yeah, you drive it for another 2 years, that money just builds so that we can,
And repairs as well. If repairs are not required, the money stays
Right.
there.
don't use it just cause it's there.
Oh,
There
absolutely.
has to be a culture of
We
No,
trying to get,
and
stretch, the life of those.
absolutely, and the major repairs that we've had, you know, with the selectmen, they've been great to work with, that, you know, pretty much it's, the only time we would dip into that repair cost if it's anything over $5,000 at a one-time whack. Or something emergent, or something big, like engine 2's pump went earlier last year, it was $44,000
You
to
can't
repair.
predict these things happen.
Correct.
But you also have to treat them as nicely as you can. You can
Correct.
beat on them,
Mhm.
or you can be nice to them.
Oh, absolutely,
And that's a culture thing. But
absolutely.
I like the idea of having predictable, replacement.
Absolutely.
And,
The maintenance
and
of
we
the,
know shit happens when the breaks and you wanna
the
have
maintenance of the
access to that
equipment
too.
over there, the guys keep it up. It's not abused, it's not mistreated, you know, when stuff breaks, you know, we have somebody in-house that fixes the small stuff, which is great, cause it saves us money.
Right.
When that pump went on engine 2, I mean, initially, it was only supposed to be a little minor repair, until they started taking it apart, and that's when it.
Yeah,
Is
all right,
Ken-
let's, keep us on track here, we're discussing Article 5.
I was gonna say, is what Ken said is true, every year, well, for at least the last 20 or more years, the combined account was funded, and when it came time to buy a piece of apparatus, there
Right.
wasn't any money there, where'd it go? And
Right.
If the townspeople didn't know, they were tracking it, and it was all
I think it was.
recapping or repumping or putting the tank
You know,
on stuff.
I will say too that we bought some used equipment, which
Yeah.
seemed like a good deal. And might well be, but it's the repair costs are gonna be higher.
Like buy the used car.
You like a used car, but your acquisition costs are lower, and I think that's what we went through.
Correct.
And that may, you know, that may be something in terms of.
And that's kind of like, when you're looking at the thing, the picture with all the apparatus on it, like Brendan has, that generally, for the most part, the life of an engine is 20-ish years now. The older stuff, we can push a little bit longer, but it's generally 10 years front line, 10 years reserve. The thought being behind that, partially thought behind that, is that all manufacturers now, it's a 10-year warranty. It's not like 3 years, 36,000 miles, it's 10 years on it now. So
So
you get your bang out of your buck on it, and then you put it in reserve that you don't beat it up anymore, it doesn't run on as many calls.
Okay, yeah,
You know, that's the type of,
yeah, and I got something, that's worth a discussion later on.
correct. Yeah.
But right now, we're on Article 5. Do we wanna recommend throwing 100,000 into the acquisition kitty or not? Or do we wanna make it more?
This is replacement, right?
Replacement, yeah, this is.
What was your
replacement.
request?
So originally, I didn't have anything in the replacement, but I had 100,000 in the repair. My issue with this is it sits, don't get me wrong, I love 100,000 in the replacement, I'm concerned that the 25 in the repair is not gonna be enough.
Not sufficient.
So if you wanted to do 75-50, something along those lines. that's-
We changed the amount as a budget committee?
Again, Chair, John,
Yeah.
let me reiterate, the $25,000 for repair, if that was not enough, the selectmen would do as we've done in the last several years. We would repair it.
From where?
We would have to go into our accounts, we could not leave a life safety issue unaddressed, and we haven't, Brendan.
Where do you fund it from?
Well, every year, the budgets are different, Martha.
And in the past, we've overexpended the equipment repair line of the fire department and found funds in other town departments, whether it be extra funds in assessing or insurance, something that,
What has been
I'd
the
rather have
average
it-
repairs over the last 10 years?
So just
Roughly.
just on the line items, not in this, but in the line items, we generally have 35,000 in the line item. Last year was cut to 33, and we're generally around 38 to 41-ish every year, on average. 38,000
to
to
40 in
41,000
repairs,
in
roughly,
repairs.
that's what we've been
Correct.
on
Out of the
averaging,
line.
some a little higher, some a little
Okay,
less.
let's let Jennifer start.
Good, proper budgeting should have the amount in the budget be as accurate as possible, and
Right.
not go back and rely on an ask of the selectmen or anybody else and pulling from different accounts.
Right.
That's not really, good proper budgeting, so I'd recommend, I'm not sure what the proper number is, but I think it needs to be something that is accurate, as opposed to knowing, going into this, that it's not gonna be enough, and then asking the selectmen for money. I don't think that's good business practice.
The stopgap is, if we have money in there that is not spent, it is going nowhere. But when a resident is looking at the fire budget, to see a $25,000 repair line, they would automatically say, well, you've budgeted what you need. When year in and year out, it is inaccurate. Is it an equipment problem? Is it a budgeting problem? We are trying to have our budget reflect reality.
So
And
then,
extra money will not be overspent.
right, so, to remind people, there is a line item for repairs.
Right.
And if it's consistently not enough, then maybe that needs to be increased. This item is an emergency repair item, it's a big ticket, like the $44,000 pump.
Right.
That is unanticipated.
Mhm.
So those figures, basically we need kind of accurate numbers from you people, and you gotta gain our trust by being consistent and accurate. Put in your budget what you think the annual repair will be, barring an unexpected major repair.
Correct.
Is that in
And
there?
so pretty much what I did was, last year was 35,000, it was cut to 33. I originally asked for 40, and I cut it back to 37.5,
This year,
trying to be, yes,
okay, that's what it
to
is.
try and cut the middle.
Okay, so you got 37.5.
I requested
Actually,
37.
The selectmen have moved forward 40,000.
40,000.
Is it?
Yes.
You don't
Yes.
have that figure.
I don't have
Plus
any,
the 25,000 into a reserve, right? So now,
Correct.
so
Right,
the 38 to 41 that we're talking about is covered
That's
within
in
the
the line.
department budget.
65,000.
So you got,
so I don't have any of that paperwork, so I have no.
So if you would look back over the last 5 or 10 years, on average on repairs, you told me it was roughly $38,000 to $40,000.
Over the last couple of years, but remember.
On a look back, if you
On the
look
last
back
couple
at
of
past
years.
history.
I-
And if we think that we could draw a straight line, then we would need 38 to 40 this year in
And that's
terms
why-
of repairs.
Right, I
And
tried to
that's-
split the difference with 37.5.
So you're close.
And so,
And
is my
that's
understanding that in the budget, there's
It's just $40,000.
40, so then why is this one anything greater than zero?
Here's what I'm kinda concerned about, Chairman.
Because there's two places for
Okay,
the same thing.
I'll address it.
Stay right on here, and I was a little surprised with how we dismissed, talking about the architect quickly. It seems like we're on two different sides, and on this topic also, I don't understand why the selectmen don't want the right amount of money in the account, and I don't understand why you guys wanna overfund it. And it seems like we're caught, the budget committee's caught in a little bit of both
Overfund.
sides.
I think, you're talking about the repair account?
No, yes, the article.
Okay, before I answer that, you go ahead.
Sorry, we are on Article 5, which is correct,
Yeah,
which is the replacement of vehicles,
Mhm.
not repairs, correct?
that's right.
Okay, I'm just trying to figure out,
You're
because there's a lot of discussion about repairs, and
I know,
it's
I
been a
know.
long day, and
So-
I'm just trying to make sure that
Well,
we're.
that's a good
Oh,
point.
okay.
Once in a while,
Yeah.
there's a problem of getting into the
Well-
weeds with the fire department. And then we get nowhere, and we get tired at the end of the day,
Right.
and we don't make good decisions.
Right, and I would argue that we talk about this separately from that, because if the long-term budget plan is that we are going to need to buy a big piece of equipment, then we shouldn't be talking I just feel personally that we shouldn't be talking about, we should be talking about repairs separately and talking about equipment purchases.
Okay, I guess the only relevance is that do we want a separate account for repairs, emergency repairs? Is, big ticket emergency, we want a separate account from the acquisition account. Before they were combined.
Right, no, I understand that, I just,
I think there are articles to do that, which is not a budget committee vote, but if that's what I recall seeing somewhere.
We're doing that, that's correct.
Right, so, and, it takes the 2 years vote to change the purpose. We did that with the town major building and repair account.
Yeah.
So there are 4 of them, I don't know, I may assume 4, a couple of them that'll do that, and, when it does that, we, depending on how you're funding it, that's where we have our say, so. So,
Okay,
I think it's gonna happen if the
Yeah.
town wants it, and if it doesn't, it's got options. If it passes, fine, then you do this, if it doesn't pass, then you do that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm inclined to think that we could probably work with the way these are set up. Given the age of the fire equipment, I hate to lose a tax shield without putting another $100,000 in the FEMA account. That's as you said, it's a separate issue from repair. But doing this, we understand that this is strictly an acquisition account, if we do that, we're not funding repair account. So, are we ready to vote on that one now?
Which article?
This is Article
Five.
5.
Does how much we decide to put in the repair account impact how much we want to put in the replace?
No, because we've separated.
Because that's why we've had this go around discussion, was we thought there was going to be
I know, there's some
influence
overlap,
there.
but I'm trying to get a vote here,
Right.
in signal things. If we vote on this, the town is gonna separate those accounts. So if it's a separate argument, it's in terms of how much you need in the repair emergency account, and how much you need in the save up for fire engine.
Last year we've been voting on a combined account, so we have combined amount this year, we're voting on.
It is separate, because the selectmen have set it up that way.
Right.
These are now separate accounts. So we're voting on strictly an acquisition account. Do we want,
But 5 is saying replacement, I'm sorry,
Hmm?
but Article 5 says replacement.
Yeah, right.
That's correct.
Replacement, right?
Oh, God, yeah, okay,
It's been a long day, right?
all right,
That's why I wanna get through this, and
Yeah.
stay on subject.
yeah.
Did we?
So are we ready to vote on this, or is there more discussion? This is replacement. We put in 100,000, we recommend more, or we don't recommend it at all.
We did not fund this last year.
No, you did not.
There was not a warrant article for this.
Correct.
All the
It's a
funds
new-
went to the ambulance,
account.
100,000 in ambulance.
Yeah.
106.
106.
Correct. Okay, no, I'm just double checking, that's
Yeah,
what it
right.
was.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor of Article 5?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. Article 6 is to appropriate $50,000 in replacement for an ambulance and major medical equipment. So the ambulance is a separate piggy bank. This is putting $50,000 in, replace the ambulance or medical equipment inside the ambulance.
How old is this ambulance? How much life is it?
This ambulance is coming up on 6 years old. I think we're gonna be alright for a little while anyways. I really do. It seems to be in good mechanical shape, good body condition, everything like that. The mileage is pretty much on track where we anticipate it to be. So it's, same thing with this, is a turnaround time is about a year. Could be a little less, depending on what it is. I'm thinking we could probably push 23 anyways, not 24, make it.
Does it meet the standard of care? Do we have any,
Yes.
things we're not doing with this ambulance that we are supposed to be?
At the time of this ambulance purchase, it was the best ambulance in the area. Other departments are catching up with their ambulances, but it is still one of the best ambulances.
Top
How long does it last?
It is
So
very
we are
good.
meeting the standard of
10 years
care.
old.
And some.
What's that?
I had this
You
one.
were that one.
Yeah,
Alright.
I forgot about the end.
Finest one in the area.
I have two questions for.
We discussed this at town meeting, but
I have two questions for you, Jay.
Are we ready, any more discussion
Yeah.
on the ambulance?
I have two questions.
Yeah.
How much does a new ambulance cost?
But same thing with this, it's 5% a year or so like that, so it's gonna be around 340-ish or so.
This year.
This was a good piece you gave us.
Yeah,
It
so I
has
had
that good cost.
My second question is, how much money does the ambulance fees collect a year roughly?
It collects, we are at, apologize. So in 2019, and this is all, you know, I mean, it's gonna be potentially a little bit of flux. We brought in just over $77,000 in revenue, just on the ambulance.
That usually gets spent on something specific though, right?
No,
Not most
all
of the time.
all the money between ambulance permits and details goes right back into the general fund, we don't see that.
There was a warrant article many years ago to put all the ambulance fees in the replacement fund and that.
Yeah,
Down
I
on the town floor.
know, I prefer this way, that's sort of a Robert Moses strategy, you know,
Yeah.
dedicated fund source, and then the ambulance, you get a new ambulance every 3 years.
John, if right now there's a balance of $152,449 in that account, if we fund $50,000 for the next 4 years, we'll actually have more money than what's required
supplies
to
to
buy a brand new ambulance.
And we may need, well, there's some major equipment always coming down the line,
Yeah, right.
so.
We're at 50% of the funding needed to buy a new one, roughly,
Roughly,
halfway, a little under.
correct.
And is the ambulance 50% of its life left?
No, we're just
No.
over the 50%, we're at 60,
So we
so
have
call it
time.
60%,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, we have
So-
40
We have
We
time.
can slow, we can slow down a little bit on this
Yeah.
account and not be,
Correct, and it's also major medical supplies, and where we just last year, we got the new life packs, the refurbished life packs and that, we should be okay, I think when we plan on replacing the other life pack next year, or the year after,
When it becomes
potentially,
non-serviceable.
when it's not serviceable, but that's
Still
potentially 2 years down the road.
No, we wanna keep it.
Then I think we should be okay.
With that, at the end of 6 years.
okay, so that's
Okay,
why that was.
what's the outside of how much longer this one will last?
6 years.
Just for.
No,
Oh,
we're at, it's 6 years old
Yeah,
now,
but you go out to 10, correct? Or-
that's 4 years.
4 years.
Correct.
Correct. And funding 50 in 4 years will give us the full amount.
Well, it'll give you close, because, you know, you're figuring 5% a year on the cost, but we'll be very
That's
close.
what we're making that interesting.
We'll be very close.
That final year might have to be a bigger amount.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I'm sure the trustees will get some, trust will get some good high paying accounts,
Yeah.
35%.
Okay, we're ready to vote on the ambulance? Okay, all in favor of recommending Article 6? Do we have a motion on that? Second? Second is to recommend Article 6.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed or abstentions? Okay. Article 7, we're back on to major repairs. Now, we put 100,000 in for a fire truck.
Right.
We put 50,000 in for an ambulance. The major repair is not an annual budget item, it's an emergency item. It's not supposed to be spent with any luck. It's, you know, the fire department is supposed to be able to cover anticipated maintenance. So,
Up to $5,000.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I understand.
In here.
But you've got, I understand they have 40,000 in the budget, in the regular line item budget for repairs. So they got 40,000.
Is it possible to get a copy of that budget? Yeah, I don't know what you guys are looking at for the selectmen's budget.
All that's,
We've got them, and we can, you know, if it's not in there,
Martha, didn't they have, this is. the
we'll
budget
change
that
it.
We
do
went
have-
over with them.
I
They
just
have
sent
that.
her the copy of my
Right.
budget earlier,
It's not a copy.
and it's
They
not
have
the
that.
same budget as you guys have.
Right.
the,
Do you have some on the table over there?
No.
can you verify that it's in the budget that we're gonna vote on?
Yes, $40,000 in the repair maintenance line of the fire department, and
Okay.
25,000 in this one article.
All right.
Without digging through, what was it last year, Mark? Do you have the number in front of you?
For what now?
How much was in there last year? It's 40,000 this year, what do we?
33.
So-
We asked for 35 and they cut it to 33.
33.
And this year you're getting 40.
year to date this year, they spent just over 40,000.
Yep.
And the selectmen have
Home to the-
pledged that they will find money elsewhere if an emergency repair exceeds their annual budget plus the $25,000 reserve. Now, this becomes, you know, Article 7 is now a new article, the 25,000 will be the only amount that's in it for this year, we can add more to it next year or whatever. Okay, are we comfortable with that? We got 40,000 in the budget for anticipated repairs. We've got 25,000 set aside, this was set aside 25,000 for unexpected repairs.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Remember,
Okay, I was.
I just wanna
Yeah,
clarify
all
something.
right, yeah, I think I'll take your comment.
The 40,000 in the vehicle repair covers all the trucks.
Yeah.
Not just one. So that 40,000 is the 3 engines, the ambulance, the command cars, the forestry. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, I expect you guys, when you're budgeting this, to say this is what,
You don't
you know,
need
this is
tires.
what we gotta maintain. Okay, so my question is, that's the way it looks now. Are we comfortable with that? If so, we wanna approve this article. If we're not comfortable with it, we wanna do something else.
Do we have the ability to change the figure for the budget committee?
I don't know.
I think
we
it's
do.
set up and down, isn't it?
Up and down.
They can only do
It's
that
up and
before
down.
a
So
town
you'd
meeting.
have to cut it a new article, or they could do it at town
Town
meeting.
meeting.
So what we'd have to do
So
is
it'd have to be up or
not
down.
recommend it and say we think it needs to be more,
That can
or
be done.
not recommend it and think
As
it's.
long as you explain that to the public. Just comment, when, I know it changed titles, but many years the town started a major building repair fund, which, and did some studies and said 100,000 would be a good number to cap it, so if you drove it down, you bring it back up. So, either when you start your committee to look at a lot of things, I'd recommend, take a look at what would be the maximum you'd wanna build that up to, and then if you draw it down, you just have to replace that amount.
Correct. Yep,
So,
absolutely.
when, you know, maybe 25 to 40 years, you know, you go from those, yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, we were, now as Jack reminded us that we can't change these figures, these are articles. So we either recommend or not recommend. Now, the town can change the figures. Okay, do we wanna vote on this now?
Can I ask
Yeah,
one
sure.
question of the, so, where did the $25,000 number come from?
Sparkman.
The selectmen,
Okay, I was just trying to get a sense of, alright,
but then looking at the 40 and
Okay.
looking at past repairs, we put in 25 more.
There's a safety
It's
valve.
just a safety valve.
What-
And
one
then
other
we hope they
question.
don't have to touch it.
I suppose, one other, after town meeting, the account, we assume will be split, and this account will have nothing in it. And generally, you don't fund capital reserve funds until December, so it's something that the trustees may need to look at. If they need it, and there's nothing there, you may have to fund that account early.
But it'd be, ultimately be fun, but you're right, they might,
You know, usually don't fund until after tax bills go up, so. And
They
then-
don't break
But the
anything
money
until
would
the
be
tax
there.
bills come.
You can get it, yeah,
Yes.
once the town says you can do it,
It's
yeah, you can
available.
go find, get the trust.
Yeah, right, it's just a money management issue.
Right.
Yes.
can I ask a follow-up question, sorry, so what would the fire department's recommendation be for a number for that article?
For the annual, or for
Well,
the repair?
Yeah, for
repair.
the major repairs, I'm just
Right.
trying to get a sense of, if we have 40 put away,
Well, you don't have 40.
well, we have
They
40 in the budget.
Right.
Right.
That's not major.
So, I mean,
Okay.
honestly, personally, I'd rather see it 50 and just not touch and leave.
Alright,
Because like I said, we just had a pump rebuild and it was $44,000.
Okay.
Right.
And that was on the newer engine. That wasn't
Okay.
even one of the old ones.
Okay.
The separation of the accounts going forward is going to create great clarity for the residents as to what the repairs cost, when the repairs are done, what the source of the damage was, and what had to be accomplished to keep the equipment functioning versus replacement. They're two completely different things. Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
it is.
Okay, so if this is increased, you know, this guy had his check, the town has to do it. Because these are already submitted, these articles now,
Yeah, I don't know,
to the
between
selectmen.
the department and the selectmen, if they could change it before we vote in public hearing or not, I'm not bet on Article 5, but if you don't change it, the only other place will be town meeting.
We think it's adequate at this time, Jack, that's why we did it.
Yeah, I understand what you did, and then, I mean, I was at an earlier meeting when some other committee tried to change a number,
Okay,
but it,
yeah.
I guess you could I mean, it's already in there, the other number, but, so it could be.
So we do with 100,000 and plus the
The
replacement.
budget committee is only an up or down vote.
Yeah, okay. So we either recommend or not recommend. Are we ready to vote?
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So if it's not recommended at the public hearing, it's gonna be a town meeting when December will change.
Yeah, it's gotta be fine.
So we can't even do it at a public hearing.
But it could also come out, the meeting is 0.
Well,
If
if
it's
it's voted down, it wouldn't.
No, that's,
You know,
I'm not-
the town will look at recommendations of the budget
Voted down,
committee.
it would be 0.
It could go down. Again,
Buy it from the floor.
we had 40 and we had 25, and we felt that's a reasonable figure to cover it and responsible given the total budget requests.
I can just add that in 2017 and 2018, there were no repairs taken out of the repair replacement trust fund, capital reserve.
That's good or bad,
So the 40,000 or thereabouts has been adequate.
you never know.
I think we can live with this because the selectmen know full well if something seriously goes wrong, they're gonna have to find that money. It's gonna come out of whatever, library budget, anything. I mean, you know, whatever they have that power to set priorities, you know, when an emergency comes up.
What I'm struggling with is, and I don't necessarily have a problem with the 25, it's that you'd mentioned, Ken, that was in, when you take a look at the overall budget. Well, the overall budget has changed significantly from, at least these warrant articles than what we had previously witnessed. So I'm still on the fence in terms of, you recommended 25 based on a certain number. Well, that number is now changed. And so you know, because I know we haven't gone through the budget piece of this yet, but even the warrant article numbers have changed. You know, we've taken off the 650, you know, so that's where I'm still struggling a little bit. If someone could just remind me again, so this is, you know, 25 here, and what was the rationale for having this at 25?
Safety gap, to make sure we have money in case there is an emergency that exceeds the 40,000. We have another 25,000 in reserve.
And what does the fire department think about this?
Honestly, I'd be more comfortable with 50, but, I mean, if they're willing to step up, if I come here and I need more than that, but the problem is, what's gonna happen the year after that?
But you haven't used it for 2
because
years.
if it does not get spent, it remains in the account.
Correct.
But beyond that, you know, adequate and accounting are two different things. If you want an accurate picture of what repairs are, and this is our budget going forward, and then we go to the town for more money, when you bring the budget forward a year from now, it's the same discussion, because there wasn't enough in there, and we had to go to the town for more, versus putting an amount in, if it's not spent, it remains there.
But getting back to what Jen said with regards to proper budgeting, we have to look at the total amount. We know.
The total amount of what?
The total bottom line of the fire department's
Right.
budget as well as everyone else's.
Right.
We know historically that the $40,000 has been enough. Considering an emergency, we added 25. So we are comfortable that we have amply protected the fire department in case there's repairs.
Would you guys be on board with nothing happens this year, we're at 25 next year, putting another 25 in next year and calling that the cap?
Well,
Potentially moving forward?
Absolutely. I mean, next year is the new
Yeah,
budget
next
year.
year.
If you spend 10 and you think 50 is a good cap, then you come back with 30.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Right.
Okay.
So we do it for building.
We ready to vote?
We're in the process of promoting this new line item.
Randy's not ready to vote.
I don't like either of them.
Well,
I just wanna clarify that one board of selectmen can't bind another board of selectmen, so although that might be the
Correct.
agreement of this board, just to make sure we're.
No, yeah.
Can
It
you
all
do a
goes.
carry forward item? Put a note so that we remember this discussion next year when this comes up.
Put that in
I don't
there.
think EJ will allow us to forget that.
That, you know, the ultimate goal was to get to 50,000.
Right, got it,
in
cap,
future years.
50,000
Okay.
cap.
Can we vote now? All in favor of
Aye.
recommending this?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? Okay, good. Next one. Net 9, okay. 75,000 to purchase 2 fully outfitted vehicles with full forestry. One, okay, not recommended by the selectmen. Okay, so this is to buy 2 pickup trucks?
Correct. So,
Alright.
you wanna go ahead and explain, or do you wanna?
Yeah, briefly, I think people, did you all read this by the way?
Yes.
Okay, so we're pretty much up to speed, so just
Correct.
give it very quickly.
So really, just real quick, the current forestry we have, that big Unimog military vehicle we have,
This one,
correct. So we got that, the department got that with the town's, approval in 2017. Since 2017, we put just over $9,000 into the engine on it. And it currently sits out of service because it went past state inspection. It needs $7,600 worth of tires because it takes specialized tires because it's a specialized vehicle.
How much we pay for it, Jim?
Nothing.
Gotcha. Well, nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Watch me give
Well,
some.
I'd
Also,
then-
like to add
That's
too,
fair.
it was presented to us that it would not cost the town a penny. This is the first we've heard that we've spent $9,000 on
First time I've ever heard
that
of it.
donated vehicle.
Okay,
No
so
cost.
that's relative to the point, what?
So no, it was no cost to
To
get it.
acquire.
It's gonna have a cost to.
Maintenance is cost.
Maintain
You just said 9,000 to me.
Correct.
That's maintenance, not acquisition.
So that's for engine repair and miscellaneous repairs to it.
I think you just cut your losses at this point, $9,500 in the hole for a
So the
vehicle.
plan I'd like to do is to replace that, the skid tank that's in the back, the pump and everything, we can reuse and put that in the back of a standard pickup truck.
Oh, build a garage and put it in there, maybe someday we'll use it. No, I mean, hey, nothing ventured, nothing lost.
Yeah, I know.
So that was for one of the vehicles.
Yep.
So to replace that, and then the other one was to replace the silver bullet, we call it, the old silver Crown Vic that we got from the PD several years ago.
How much did that cost the town?
Nothing, it was an old police vehicle.
Gotcha.
So it was an old,
Instead of the trade-in, they gave it to them.
it was an old detective's vehicle, so it had low mileage on it. It's got some maintenance issues with it, the defroster's currently broken right now, it stinks to drive in the snow. There's no lap outs in the back, so we can't put anybody in the back. And it doesn't have the proper storage for equipment and for the gear.
What did we do before we got this?
We had another pickup truck.
You had a pickup truck, that was
Correct.
another, that was for the assistant chief.
Correct. So what we wanna do is to replace that with the exact same pickup truck pretty much. They come off the New Hampshire state bid, so they're gonna be, I believe they're still Fords. It's a Ford brand, 3/4 ton, it can pull the rescue trailer, so we can either pull the trailer with that vehicle, the assistant chief's vehicle, or with the forestry. Or the utility, I'm sorry, with the utility, either trailers. So if one's not around, we still have one to be able to use to pull the trailer, the boat, anything like that.
How often is it, sorry, Jay, that's good. You might need to pull the boat out of the marina and trailer it around while you also have a trailer on a different truck, that specific.
No, our rescue trailer is very heavy, so it needs to have a 3/4 ton to be able to tow.
And that 2013 Chevy doesn't cut it?
The white one?
Yeah.
It does. So, I'm sorry, let me jump back. So what the plan was, is because the 2013 Chevy, the white one, is not in great shape either, is I was gonna take the skid unit
one.
out of the forestry, put it in the back of the white one.
Does anybody drive a 2013 here that has 1,000 miles on
I
it.
wish, I think I've got 200 on mine.
How, is it good shape?
I wish it's
So what I wanted to do was to take the skid unit out of the forestry, put it in the white one, and make that the forestry, because we won't be beating the crap out of it, because that's used to plow as well. And then
Plow
take
what?
the parking lot, hydrants, any of that stuff, going into driveways if there's a storm.
Gotcha.
It will go ahead of the ambulance to try and plow the way to get in.
Okay, yeah.
We gave that recommendation because the fire department will be receiving a Ford Explorer from the police department. The current pickup truck has very low mileage on it, so what we're recommending is to do what it was originally, put the forestry equipment back in the back of the pickup truck, and that pickup truck can still tow the boat and still tow the other trailer if needed.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, pretty sure.
So it's not gonna be overweight with 300 gallons of water in the back?
Well, you may have to drain the water out when you're gonna take the one day of the
Okay,
year.
so
that you're
let
gonna
me just
pull the
ask you this,
trailer.
not to
When you
get,
go to
not to
a
get.
fire, you bring water.
So if we have a fire or I have a bunch of equipment or hose laying on the ground, how am I gonna get that back to the station to clean it?
This is like a line in the sand type of issue. We get a free forestry truck, and the only reason that we get it and we bring it into the town is because it's free, everybody. Why wouldn't we take this, right? $9,500 later, we're into this thing and now we need to replace it. A. B, we also need to find something in order to be able to put out forest fires now off of this free forestry truck, where we didn't have the capability before that thing. And the only reason we have the capability is because it was free. It ain't free.
This is a case of what does free cost you? This fire administration did not make that decision. You are completely correct. What does free cost you? We are trying to get to a
And
baseline.
with all due respect, you guys are responsible for all the past decisions, same as we are for the past decisions of this board.
We're,
Unfortunately,
and correcting them as well.
Yeah, and I agree that, you know, we are all responsible, we have to move from this point forward,
So,
and not,
can I just
yeah.
finish up a couple things? So that white pickup truck was the forestry before we got that pickup truck. That's why it has low mileage on it, because it wasn't ran around very much. So the plan is, because it is starting to get tired, doesn't matter the mileage on it, it's still beat up. That, to make that the forestry again, one of the new pickups will become the chief's vehicle with a cap on the back, so he can put his equipment back there, we can have a command staff, or a command box. The other pickup truck will become the new utility to be able to tow the trailers, move equipment around, move hose around, move any of that stuff around the back of the pickup truck. The issue is, I don't want the hand-me-downs from the PUD. The reason behind that is, one of the big cancer things, and I know, I'm not trying to harp on the cancer stuff, is that we are not supposed to have our gear in the passenger compartment of the vehicle. Would be in the back of the pickup truck under the cab. And those, police cruisers, especially that model in that year, I believe, I could confirm with, Chief Bilodeau, is the one that had the CO issues. Because I know Dover had a big round of issues with their cruisers, that there was CO leaking from the exhaust out of the department.
Well, the chief's here, he could answer that question. Chief, that car is perfectly safe, is it not?
I will say we haven't had CO issues in the SUVs, but there has been issues in the past.
from the aftermarket,
Yes.
That's what I was gonna get at. Portsmouth Ford has remedied the problems that we've had in other departments.
Perfect.
But again, I mean, we don't have the separation that Chief White is actually talking about.
And do those have lap belts in the back?
They would not have laptops
So,
in the back.
Do the doors open from the outside?
From the outside, yes, the inside, no.
Right.
Install the belts.
You don't wanna hang me down.
do you guys categorically, the police officers spend more time in a cruiser than a fire? Fire?
Absolutely.
Gotcha, okay. Anybody, alright, I'll leave it there.
Can I get some clarification on,
Absolutely.
you're keeping the white truck,
Yes.
Yes.
you're repurposing it, but the
Yeah,
plan is to
into the
keep it?
forestry, yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
This car is gone,
goes away. Yep,
And
this,
this.
this vehicle
that's still in service.
still in service,
Yes,
and this is
that would go
gone.
away as well.
Gone.
So you're replacing one of these things, whatever this thing's called,
Forestry,
and replacing one car
Yes.
with
yes.
two trucks, but we're currently using one car and we're not using this. Can we
Right.
get away with one pickup truck instead of two?
So I'm replacing two vehicles though.
But you get.
But you're not using.
Because I
both.
still need
This one's not
I still need
being
a open bed pickup truck.
It's still technically being used, forestry season is
I
over.
think Jamie's question is, why isn't there an article for one truck instead of two trucks?
Because one truck is not being used, you seem to be doing okay. We're replacing one car that's being used with two pickup trucks.
So the forestry's not being used right now because it's, one, it's not inspectable, but two, it's not forestry season, there's snow on the ground.
It's a suburban.
It's an
building.
unwieldy vehicle that has specified use, that again, as Brandon said, what is free going to cost you? To get to a baseline, the sensible thing to do would be not put any more money into this
Yeah, get rid of
vehicle.
that thing.
We'll strip it
Yes,
out,
get
turn
rid
it
of
back
this
in, and then the town can
To
sell it.
I agree with
fact,
that.
to
Get rid of
also
that great car,
in fact,
because it needs to be an upgrade.
get rid of
Upgraded
this
car.
one, and by getting rid
Now
of
you have a pickup that you didn't have before.
by getting rid of both of those, along with the maintenance, the insurance, the registration, the repairs that go with them.
Yeah.
To get two smaller vehicles that are serviceable for your needs makes the most sense.
But do we
Is
need
it-
two?
Is
Yes.
it more money up front? Yes. However, when you look at the cost savings and the amortization of time you're going to use these vehicles, it makes sense to spend quality money up front.
So, there's three vehicles in play, there's the forestry, the
Yeah.
big Unimog,
That's not used.
that's that.
Yeah,
There's the white pickup truck,
that
and then the
is
silver,
good.
that is still good,
Yep,
and then the silver car.
yep.
So I'm
That
gonna
is-
take the equipment out of the forestry, the red big pickup, or the red big, Unimog, the military vehicle.
Yep.
I'm gonna take the equipment that's in the back of that, put it in the white pickup truck.
Yep.
So now I don't have a pickup truck with an open bed to carry equipment.
But you have the Ford Explorer that
Are
you
you still
could
taking
seal
this?
off the back.
Are you still taking the Explorer?
I really don't want it.
That's what it's gonna get.
Gotcha. Okay, so,
Because it doesn't suit the needs for the department, I can't carry a bunch of people
but
in
maybe
it.
with tact, and the board should really understand this, you come to the committee and the selectmen with a 10% increase in your overall budget, whatever it's justified by, a new building potentially that we're floating out there, new trucks, new engines, man, it's-
So,
and a $25,000 consultant to come in and tell us how we should do better.
no, to see that what I'm doing, if it's broke, needs to be fixed, and if I'm doing something right, then to keep on that track.
In,
But the other thing too is you gotta remember, I'm new administration, I'm new to this, I'm new into this town. I'm trying to make sure what we have works and what we don't, I need to get us to a point that it does work. And, not gonna lie, over the last year and change that I've been here, the budget's been cattywampus, you guys all are full aware about it. So I would honestly like to get through a budget year and see where we're at.
That's what we heard last year with respect to Jay. We heard the same thing from the former chief. That
It's
the
no
former
longer
chief
here.
was cattywampus. It was all over the place.
Mhm.
You know, it falls on deaf ears after a while. And with there's not a lot of tact in how do we manage this over a 5-year process in order to get us to where we want. I don't, hey, that's
So as far as what though?
silver
I guess,
bullet.
as far as the
Silver
5-year
bullet's ugly, but does it run? Is it free? Is it able to be used?
actually, it's not free. There's too much money being put into repairs.
How much did we spend on it this year?
How much was spent?
I'm not,
that-
I don't know off the top of my head.
Figure out, I know it blew at least one spark plug out of the head this year.
Yeah.
It got tires and had some other.
Yeah,
I mean, we have spent
Okay.
typical maintenance for the year.
Go ahead.
And it's not about, the dialogue back and forth, but there is a tone in this room that I don't find acceptable. I'm hearing from the gallery, I'm hearing up front here, and that there's little side remarks that are very snarky, and they're from our leaders in this organization, and I don't think it's appreciated. I think that people are trying to do the best, I think we're all passionate about this as a topic, but I think we need to take it down a notch and let people, have a conversation about it. But I don't appreciate what I'm hearing on the side remarks, because I'm listening to all of it. And I don't think it's a good reflection of professionals in our town. So I'd like to make that statement, thank you.
Okay, that's fine,
I like to make the comment, I think there is a lot of respect here, I think this is a good
Absolutely.
dialogue. I don't take any.
No, there's side comments that are not
Personally.
appropriate.
Okay,
Well-
let's take the advice and say, let's try to keep, no side comments, let's try to stick with the subject matter. Right now, we are discussing the vehicle needs of the fire department. They've got, beyond the fire trucks and the ambulance, they've got 3 utility vehicles or police chief's vehicles in play. They want 2 new pickup trucks this year. That's the immediate issue. Out of 3 utility vehicles that they're operating, they want 2 new pickup trucks to replace them.
So I just wanted to comment that and to reflect on what you just said, is that there are 3 vehicles and they're asking for 2. And the other is that I think there seems to be a discord about what is an acceptable vehicle to replace these vehicles with. And what I'm hearing the fire department say is that they need vehicles that are going to suit their needs instead of getting a vehicle that doesn't suit their needs, that doesn't meet industry standard. If we're handing them a used police cruiser that they're having to, ride around with their equipment that's off-gassing in the back seat, I don't think that's good practice, or acceptable. I mean, we should be listening to, I understand the cost piece of it, but at the same time, instead of just putting another Band-Aid on this and having this conversation in another 2 or 3 years, like we did with this silver bullet, which I'm sure is the same conversation we had when they acquired that. I think we have an opportunity to fix the problem. That being said, I will say that I'm wondering if it's possible, I know that you're asking for money to have a 3rd person come in and audit everything. I'm wondering if some of this stuff we can wait, or, I would like to see more information, with the caveat that if we do agree to spend the money to have somebody come in and do this, that we take a really hard look at what that person is saying. I think it's a waste possibly could we wait and see what they say, or, is that a possibility at this point?
The immediate give back to that is, we don't want to just bang $140,000 random into a building.
Right.
Cause to cause.
Right, well, now we're talking about vehicles, so I'm wondering if the same sort of thing
Same
applies.
thing, we're trying to, cut our losses and get to a baseline.
Can you live with, 1? Can we make 1 work instead of the 2 for this year?
Yeah, okay, yeah, so,
I had a question, I guess, for the fire department, would there be a rationale to simply ditching the forestry capability since it's so rarely used? Because there would be an advantage in freeing up space in the station, because right now that gigantic truck, it takes up a lot of space in the bays, and it's so rarely used, and so if it wasn't there, you'd have extra space in the station, which would be of assistance, and if that extra space would be more valuable than the forestry capability, maybe that's a good trade-off.
So, where it's housed right now is a single vehicle bay anyways. The issue is that we are responsible for the National Wildlife Refuge, and if there's something out there on the point, I have no vehicles to get down there to take care of that. The very end of Fox Point, I have no vehicles to take care of that.
Can we put a temporary garage out there and leave that truck out there?
It's got water on it, I can't leave it outside.
We could discuss vehicle
So-
strategy all night, and it's not gonna.
But I guess one thing I just wanna clarify is the fact that you keep saying that we have a 3rd utility, we don't. I need to get rid of 2, so I'm gonna replace it with 2.
Yeah.
I'm not adding to it.
No, but what I said is you had 3 utility of chief's vehicles that aren't fire engines or ambulances.
Well, no, it's not a chief's, it's a forestry, which is a piece of apparatus.
I know, I'm talking in total. You got a chief's car, you got an assistance truck, and you've got.
And they get the white pickup, correct.
Right, in the
Yes.
pickup. So that's 3 vehicles that you
Correct.
wanna maintain
Correct,
in the future.
correct.
So the question is, do they need 2 of those vehicles now, or can we do 1 a year up to their 3 pickup? Because you want a pickup truck ultimately, right?
Yes.
Everybody wants a pickup truck.
Well, no, it's better suited and it's
No,
cheaper,
I
because
understand.
the same prices, like if we were gonna go replace the Suburban, which we don't need another Suburban. But if I were to go get a Tahoe off the state bid, it's
42.
I'm sorry, $42 $22,000, and a 3/4 ton Ford pickup truck is 28 and change.
27.
Right.
A half ton is 26.5, they're within
Is-
negligible numbers.
So I agree in a sense that pickup trucks, these are crew cab pickups?
Yes, yep,
That's a better deal than buying a Tahoe.
absolutely.
The question is, how fast do we get there? They want 2 trucks now, I feel more comfortable with 1 truck. You know, phase it in.
Yeah.
Because this is just budgeting reality.
Suggestion is that right now, the vote is for 0 up or down.
I know.
Okay, if we say yes either way,
Yeah.
it's either if it doesn't get changed at town meeting, he gets no money this year.
Mhm.
Just speculate, just hypothetically, let's say to get this study done, it's after town meeting time, so nothing's changed. And they say, well, you really need 2, we get, well, I've got to squeeze 1 out this year. The Article 5 is replaced with vehicles operated by fire department, not, it's any vehicle. If worst comes to shove, you could take a pickup truck out of that and then add whatever that costs into next year's warrant to, what I'm saying, to replace it. So it's like borrowing from one account and replacing it the next year, so there's a possibility that could happen if the town votes 0. Somebody could come in with an amendment, add enough for 1, add enough for 2, or we give it enough. It's that desperate and it's a life safety issue, and somebody says, you need to have this to operate healthily, is that the word? For the employees, we're here to protect the employees also, and if they're not operating a vehicle that's detrimental to their health, then it's an obligation from the department to do something.
Brandon's been staring at me.
Okay, are we ready to vote on this? That's a tough one,
I'd like,
but, you know, with the,
James, go ahead, I'm talking.
okay, Jim.
My question or comment is, if you took all these, not fire trucks, but the other auxiliary
Yes,
vehicles,
yes.
like the Suburban and the Silver Bullet and all these,
Yep.
if you got rid of them all and started brand new with newer used stuff, what would be the ideal vehicles for each of those things, and how far away are we currently from the ideal?
A pickup.
A pickup for each
A
one?
3/4 ton pickup.
A pickup for the Suburban instead of the
With a
Suburban,
cap on the
a
back.
pickup is for each of those vehicles,
And
all of
then-
them a pickup, a fleet of
Yes.
pickups, nothing else.
Because I need a empty bed pickup truck to haul equipment and that type of things.
Right.
Which is the white.
So right
utility
now, we have
now.
one Suburban, which ideally would be a pickup truck.
Yep.
We have one, whatever,
Forestry.
forestry, that would be a pickup truck, obviously, not the, this is the same.
And then the thought,
So there'd be a
not to
total
keep
three
this dragging.
pickups, right?
Correct, but the thought, not to keep it going, but the fact that if something was starting to get tired in whatever, 10-something years, it could step down and still do another roll of that forester, or the utility, it could step down, essentially kind of like with the engines, at 10 years front line, 10 years reserve.
Right.
We could do however many years this, and then when something went, like that white pickup truck,
Right.
when it comes time to replace that, I could take one of the other vehicles, bump it down to that,
And
and
what's
then
the
replace
life of
that.
one of these pickup trucks?
Depending
10
on-
years?
I would hope, anyways, 12, 15 years.
So 12 years,
Sure.
we should have 3 trucks. There should be 3 years apart, 3 or 4 years apart in age, so that they
In theory, that would
age
be
out.
great.
That's what we should be going for.
I don't disagree with you, Jamie, I just have to drive home this point, because this is a different standard that I'm gonna be a stickler on going forward. What was your forestry vehicle before?
That white
The
pickup
white
truck.
pickup, okay.
Mhm.
And if we get rid of this free forestry truck, and we go back to making that white pickup truck your forestry vehicle, what's the problem? You don't have.
I won't
you don't
have,
something
I won't
to
have an
snow,
open bed, no, I won't have an open bed pickup truck.
because you got rid of
Because
an
there's a
open bed
tank
pickup
in the
truck when it
back.
was.
Because
before.
that white pickup is the only open bed pickup truck.
I
we own.
understand that, when that was your forestry truck.
We had a
which you
red
got
pickup
before,
truck.
Which was this, replaced by the Crown Vic.
Yep.
Alright, right?
Say that again?
You had an open bed pickup truck when you were using the Chevy for the forestry,
Yes.
right? And that
There was a
was
separate
the
red
assistant
pickup truck.
chief's.
I believe he drove that somewhat, but at the time, correct me if I'm, the red,
The red
the all
pickup,
red one.
the red pickup truck was for the assistant chief,
Gotcha, so that was
Until it
replaced
blew
by
the
the
motor.
Crown Vic.
until it blew the
Yes.
motor.
Okay, and so I guess what kind of where I'm getting to is, besides having an other pickup truck that you guys are asking for having the open bed,
Mhm.
etc. you need it to tow, right?
You need
That
a
was
vehicle
one-
to tow and a vehicle to plow, yes.
Okay, and that could be on the assistant chiefs to replace the silver bullet here? If there was
No,
one
because
truck,
I need a cap on the assistant chief's vehicle,
you get a cap.
because I need to be able to
But
put
you
the
can
gear in
plow
the
it.
back.
But you can plow with a cap.
No, you could,
Yeah.
but I would have to buy a whole nother plow for probably $8,000, which I already have a plow on that white pickup truck, which I would be fine with plowing, continuing to plow.
Okay, but even still, so if it's not forestry season and it's snow season, maybe we can empty the tank, and you would be able to put a plow on that forestry truck, right?
Correct.
When it's snow time.
Yeah. Correct,
Okay,
absolutely.
and the only other thing is, because the other trigger word I heard was that you need to be able to tow the boat, which wasn't
Or
an
the
issue
trailer.
until we got this free boat, right?
No, we used to tow the other boat as well.
Well, you don't need a 3/4 ton truck to tow the old boat,
No, I need to tow my trailer.
which is, so how are we doing that? You using the white pickup truck now?
Yes, it's a
And you were using the red
white
pickup truck
is a-
before that?
They were both 3/4 ton pickups, yeah.
Okay, I'm still getting down to the fact that there's one pickup truck that's a need, and I don't understand where the second one's coming from,
You need a platform for your forestry equipment.
which we already have.
Sure you'll have.
Which the white one will turn into,
Right.
so then I don't have a pickup truck.
You need something that
So
has
you
a
need
back.
one.
I need one
So you
to
need a-
replace that utility. Correct.
Correct.
So now I need to replace the silver bullet.
Does your
Why
proposal,
can't the silver bullet be used by that same utility with the cap on it?
that's a.
Because that's a whole separate truck.
That's a car.
Oh.
This is the Crown Vic. The
You-
silver
you-
bullet is
No, I
Crown Vic.
understand,
Your proposed trucks have a backseat?
Yes,
Cab-
there will be
cab?
two cabs, absolutely.
Right.
So the Ford Explorer, in your mind, is totally out of the deal.
I would prefer not to.
Would it serve?
If there was the chance that if we could get one pickup now, because we need a forestry. There's no questions about that. If we could get at least one, I want two, if we could get one, and if we had to use the Explorer for a year, and then start figuring out for replacement of the other stuff, I'm not against it. But again, temporary things become permanent all the time at the fire department.
It's not just vehicles, the number of vehicles. It is the specific uses of the vehicles.
Right.
And rather than trying to juggle inventory, take the Crown Vic, which is close to the end of its life, the great big, as you say, 3 forestry vehicle, the big military vehicle, cut out of them now, stop any further investment in repairs, insurance, registration, maintenance, and the like. Because these vehicles are not giving the value return in utilization. We're trying to get 2 pickups for utilization, get rid of that, and then start fresh.
So I would suggest one pickup now. You have one that's, one new one, you have one already, so now there's 2. Deal with it for 3-4 years, and get another pickup, now you have 3 pickups.
But we can't make that
And-
vote, we can either
No,
vote.
just
Or
vote.
do it over time,
What if we
and
said,
get to where you want
the
to,
budget
but
committee
we don't have to do it
recommends
all
this
on day one.
be changed to one truck by the town?
That could be done between now and public hearing.
Hmm?
That could be done between now and the public, they'd have to rewrite the warrant article, but the originators and the cycle can do that.
Who originated the warrant article?
Cause I say we get there, but
The
just
fire
not,
department?
not
Can't you rewrite it
all
for
in
one
one
truck?
swoop, but it'll take a couple years, but we'll get there.
I mean, we're dealing now, would we vote for one truck this year? Okay, why don't you change the warrant out for one truck? Okay, can we vote on that now? We can.
You vote to table
Where-
this until then.
We can table it, or we can say we vote on warrant out for one truck. Let's
In
vote
theory,
that
I
way.
mean, we can recommend the change, but I don't think we can actually vote to change in the figure.
All we're doing is recommending anyway.
Right.
And you're gonna give us a new warrant
So,
article
absolutely.
later? Okay.
Yeah, I can update them anyways for you guys.
I think we get there, just not as
So-
fast as we
All
want
right,
to.
I'll make a motion to recommend the figure be changed to include the purchase of one truck, of the warrant article amount.
Okay, that's your,
That's my recommendation, my motion.
okay, state it again?
Well, if it's right, it's recommend that the amount of article, where we,
Be
Nine.
changed.
9, be changed to include the purchase price of one truck.
Okay, you got a second on that? That's a second, okay. Can we vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay.
Opposed.
You're opposed, okay. Good, okay. So you got a truck, and we need to make it as clear as possible for the town. It'd be nice if that was the actual warrant article.
So instead of 7.5, it goes to half of that.
37.5.
Yeah, 37.5. Okay, that's Article 9, we're down to Article 12. This is recommended by the selectmen, it's $28,000 for the purchasing of a fireboat. This,
That's pretty cheap for a boat.
all right, and I don't know, I assume you all know the story on this. The fireboat, we were told, would be entirely funded by donation. As it turns out, we're $28,000 short, but in the transition with the deceased chief and the past year, the boat has been delivered. So we've got it, we've got possession of it, and we owe another $28,000 on it. This has never been in the town budget. My belief was that if we're gonna pay that other $28,000, the town ought to vote on it. And I'm sure they will, because the boat's here and it's a $150,000 boat. And all the rest of it, as I understand, was paid for out of donations, but they came up $28,000 short.
What's the line, Chairman, that says no amount to be raised from taxation?
It's my understanding that the fire department has those funds left over in their 2019 budget that will lapse to the unassigned fund balance, so there wouldn't be an impact on the.
So what they did is they saved the money out of this year in an effort to try to pay off the boat. And the selectmen, I believe, told them that to be kosher about this, the town should vote on it. So you take that $28,000, you turn it back into the unassigned amount. We'll put it in your budget. We'll put it in the budget to fund this warrant article, but it won't have any effect on the tax rate because the money has already been saved. It's just getting transferred out.
The fire department has requested to encumber $28,500 from our 2019 budget to carry over 2020 to pay for this purchase. As a result of, that money was left over in the budget because after our prior deceased chief was deceased, we did not fill the assistant chief position for 4 months.
That's where the money came from.
Yes.
Wages.
That's, yes.
Wages.
But
Wages, we saved, and we found ways to pay for any financial responsibilities that were created within the fire department.
So when we had the meeting back in July, August, we sat down to bring you guys up to speed on what we found and all that stuff.
Yes.
You know, we were tasked back then to find the money to pay for these things. We found the money to pay for these things, we wanna pay for these things, cause that invoice on that boat has been open since April.
Right.
That company, Silver Ships, has been waiting since April to get paid.
Is there any debt service?
no.
No.
No interest.
No, they've been very good, there's been no late fees, no interest, no
Okay,
anything.
now, this is a matter of financial management. I certainly would recommend we pay for the boat. My feeling is that was never in the 2019 budget. The town was never told they were buying a boat.
That is
So
correct.
I think.
Absolutely.
That is correct.
The fire department has saved the money, but I think the honest thing to do, the transparent thing to do is tell the town, this is the final payment on the boat, it's the only payment the town would make. This was they were $28,000 short in raising the money, and that's what this warrant is for. And the fire department has actually saved the money out of last year's budget, so it won't affect the tax rate.
There is no burden on the town. It was money that was in our budget, correct?
Now, if the town, technically the town votes it down, then that money stays in the unassigned account.
Correct.
It doesn't go to the fire department. So, yeah, you could use that money.
Lower the tax rate.
You could lower the tax rate. But I think that the town, in fairness, ought to know that the fire department did scrape and save to try to fund it. They just can't go take that money, buy a boat without the town approval, yeah.
Can I ask a question, so, but we need a boat, right? I mean, I just wanna confirm, that do we need a fireboat?
We got one,
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah,
Oh, yes,
I
we
mean,
do.
we've got the largest waterfront in
In the bay.
in the bay, right? So I'm just asking, I just wanna make sure that I wanna hear from the fire department that we actually need a
Oh,
fire.
yes, absolutely.
Coast Guard won't come past the bridge, really.
That part's over though, we got it. Do we need $150,000? I don't know.
There's 131.
Did
Well,
the
it was supposed
town
We
know
got
we
the
were
vote.
paying for it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
Well,
obviously,
I think we all admit
But
that
it's
this could have
under
been
the
handled very
bridge,
differently,
probably.
right? I just don't think this was handled the way it should have been.
I agree with you
Right?
100%.
yeah,
It's
But,
not a problem,
but we
not
can't
paying.
change it going forward.
Right.
Right, it's water under the.
right, yeah, okay, yeah, 10.
So the only
The
issue is
selectmen
whether
understand-
Kumo wants to pay it.
The selectmen understand how they got there. The selectmen want to be transparent, and the other thing we have to take into account for, there's a $20,000 bid policy in the town. So, we did not bid that, but it's $28,000. We are comfortable putting it in the unassigned fund balance, taking the warrant article to the residents. Let them vote on that, and as we said, it wouldn't cost the taxpayers any more money this year, and then fund it from the fund balance. But we felt we could not, under any circumstances, pay for that directly without going through a town meeting and having the town people vote.
Okay, so are we clear, we're ready to vote on this, you understand the
What would-
situation?
Just for conversation, though, what's the other side? What would happen if it gets voted down?
It's a good question, the guy could repossess the boat, I suppose. It's because we haven't paid for the whole thing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
they still have the title of the vote until they get their final check, so we don't have
Okay, so
title.
they got the title, yeah, that'd be pretty easy to repossess it.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, so we'd be out 100,000 in donations if those people made, we'd be out of luck. Okay, yeah, good point. So it is worth knowing what the.
Maybe for the town meeting, you may want to have the number of boat rescues you do.
Yes,
There's quite a few.
those are on call reports that are actually given to the selectmen
Yeah,
every
I mean,
month.
I'm talking about for the public.
Yes.
When this comes up
Yes.
for discussion.
I mean, you're right in terms of, if you look at more freight comes in Newington than Portsmouth. You know, a substantial amount of our evaluation is waterfront. It's major stuff, having a boat.
I think every industry gets an effect on their insurance too by us.
Yeah, that's why they're raising money,
Right.
and maybe 10 years from now when the motor goes, they'll be able to raise some money to replace that. I will. Okay, are we ready to vote on this? So this is to recommend, which is the selectmen's
Can I
recommendation.
just say one thing? The amount is $28,250,
Okay,
the correct amount.
can you modify that?
The selectmen can modify that, is that
Okay.
2250?
So the motion is to approve
Have a vote.
$28,250 to pay off the balance of the rescue boat.
Do we ever get a motion on this item?
No, that's what I need.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying, the motion is.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, in second,
Seconded.
by whom, okay, oh, great, okay.
You did.
No, you'll put your name on it. Randy gets
Mr.
the
Chairman,
second.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask you a question?
Yes,
Okay. Did the fire chief have to come back in with a new warrant on it, the 28.2, like we did the other article, because he's changing the value on it? I never submitted that, so that would be.
I think the selectmen can change it.
At your next meeting, the selectmen could vote.
Okay, take clarification. I just wanna make sure, that's fine, thank you.
Okay, all in favor, ready to vote, all in favor? So we're recommending the 28.250. Okay, good, good job. Fire Okay.
We didn't talk about the needs assessment,
Was that, did we miss one?
the 25,000 for the needs assessment.
So what article?
15.
Yeah, that's what I'm coming to.
Yeah, 15 is next.
15 is next. Okay, this is $25,000 to conduct a third-party full needs analysis of the fire department. Article is not recommended by the selectmen. Could the selectmen very briefly tell me why they're not recommending?
Yes. First, let me say, you've all heard this term, trust and verify. We are willing to do that, but the fire board this year. But as you know, there are concerns with the management practices. In particular, time cards, all purchases being approved by the fire board, credit cards,
What does
public
this-
Are we
relations.
talking about the audit, or?
So what I'm saying is that we give the fire department our trust and let them this year go through the year. The auditors will come back in next year and verify, and it's premature at this point to do that study. We have new people, and we have one fire engineer that hasn't participated in a long time. So we're not opposed to it, we're saying, wait a year. Wait a year.
Okay.
We've rejected $140,000 dump into the building. That makes no sense. A $25,000 needs assessment
It covers everything.
to look at the big picture, plot the path forward, determine what makes sense, what doesn't. We're stopping the selectmen from spending $140,000 on that building and asking for a $25,000 cause to pause. Where are we? That makes no sense.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. We've heard from the selectmen, we've heard from the Board of Fire Engineers, I assume you speak for the entire board. Do we have any specific, it's a fairly straightforward thing, we're either doing this study or we're not, or we're postponing the study. The study's coming up, $25,000 study.
Was this discussed in previous warrant articles, about this, results of this study gonna make some determinations on spending on other articles in the future?
Well-
Is that the same study, or is this a
Yes,
different?
it is, no, it's the same one.
Who is doing the study and who picks the study?
Third party, and I think we can get a collection going.
I have a question.
Oh, okay, well, that's
For
fine, let me
both
finish
of us.
let me finish the answer to my question. and I'll take that.
Thank you.
So the initial conversations we've had
Mhm.
to get the prices and what's covered and what's encapsulated is actually through MRI.
To what,
MRI, which is the one that you guys have chosen to do the auditing.
okay.
I'm sorry, the assessment.
The assessment.
So it's the same company?
Same company.
Yes.
All right, but we're not talking about the same thing.
Correct, correct.
No,
Could
Just
they
happens to
be,
be the same
could they
company.
be combined?
It's two different, I
no.
think it's two different
Two-
sides.
Town assessing and a study is two different functions.
All right, yeah, so.
It's the
specs are
same
different.
company that provides a lot of municipal resources.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay.
MRI.
Good. All right, now let me, Jamie, next.
I
Let's
got
be
it.
brief.
I had a question. So this is a, study to look at how the operations are happening
Everything.
at the fire station
Everything, yep,
and to give recommendations.
correct.
And this is an outside person
Yep,
or outside company.
completely neutral and biased.
Do we think that we have the expertise in-house to, I think it's a good idea to do that assessment, that's a fantastic idea. Question is, can we do that in-house with our board of engineers, and with our fire chief, and with our assistant chief, et cetera, to say, hey, you know, this is how we're doing things, let's just step back and spend whatever amount of time just looking at this from a fresh set of eyes, but we do it. Is that a reasonable thing, or would it be better to have someone else? I'm just, cause it's $25,000, I just wanna, cause that's kinda what we're paying the chief to do, right? That's
The
the
board-
chief's job, right?
The board and the chief sat down, we talked about it, is this something we can do in-house?
Yeah.
Back and forth, the chief said it would be better if we had an outside person looking at the department, giving us an assessment going forward, so that when we came to you guys in the town for down the road, you're looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
What
As
this-
the board members, we felt that we could give you guys the big
Isn't that what we
picture.
pay the chief to do? Isn't that the, part of the chief's role is to,
Somewhat, yes,
Provide
absolutely, but the
that.
problem is that, you know, I could come in here and say, we as a board recommend that we need to do this, and then, well, you have to justify it, we justify it, but it still doesn't click, you know what I mean? Whereas if we have a third party come in and take a neutral look at it, it's gonna be easier to swallow.
What we did determine was a $25,000 independent needs assessment, top to bottom, left to right, for this board made more sense at this juncture than going into $140,000 spent on
Oh,
this.
yeah, I agree with that, for sure.
So we don't want that money, we want a path forward before any money is spent. And there's a big difference in 25,000 and 140.
I
Okay,
understand.
that's-
Those are different.
I agree, that's
apples and
clear.
oranges.
I'm gonna keep this narrow. Now, do you have anything different to add?
Yes.
Okay.
First and foremost is the prudential authority rests with the selectmen and the assets of the town. We would support that study in a year, but the study should happen through the selectman's office, not the fire department. The fire department would participate with this, but the prudential authority, asset authority belongs in the selectman's office. And we would welcome them joining us a year from now.
The board to conduct a third party. This is the board of fire engineers.
Just because it has not been a calendar or fiscal year, are you guys opposed to setting your roots here a little bit and kind of coming up with what the first 12 full consecutive months looks like under a different board of fire engineers and under a different chief, just to kind of grab a baseline before you go after what your needs assessment is? Is there opposition there, like strong?
Honestly, I would prefer to have it now.
Yeah,
I can't say no, that.
that's rational though, right?
No,
I mean,
sure,
that's rational.
sure.
And as I said, what we know we don't need is to just go out and drop a bunch of money.
I
And
agree
then
with
turn
that.
around and say, and again, the Board of Selectmen is wanting to drop that money absent a needs assessment. And that is cause for concern for this board.
Okay, we promise you not to drop money. We won't let the selectmen drop it.
Thank you, it's a lot of money.
But let's get back to, I think we're talking about now, there's certain issues. One is, do we do the study now, is it done under the auspices of the Board of Fire Engineers? Or do we do a study under the auspices of the selectmen with the fire engineers? Do we do it this year, or as Brandon said?
Can I just ask?
Do we, well, let me fish this out, and I'll touch it. Or do we, as Brandon says, well, let's run this for a year, do as much homework as we can, and then do the study. So that's how I see it. Now,
I just wanna add, real quick, I just wanna add, if it ends up being next year, whatever. I think it would be better if we were neutral, even, not you over us or us over you. I'm completely on board with having you guys, because you guys are gonna be the big, excuse me, the key to whatever happening. But I think we need to work together on the same level going
That's what
forward.
we said. That's what we said. We would invite you to work with us.
Well, inviting
but
you
the
is not
statutes- I
working
understand
together.
that, but the statutes are.
Let's not get into semantics, let's get the
right,
bottom
yeah,
line.
you know, I suspect that if we see this next year, it's gonna be a joint study. But the question is now, do we wanna recommend this now, or not? Or whatever, we can't change this unless somebody submits a new warrant. We can't write warrants.
One question that's hopefully not gonna take us off, is what's the 25, does it have to be 25,000? Could we
That's-
get something that's less?
No,
Like
that's the
12,000?
cost of essentially the full package, to go stem to stern, top to bottom.
But Jen, I think that might be one of the benefits of being able to wait and kind of let your roots out a little bit is, do we need a building assessment? Do we need a department assessment? Do we need an equipment assessment? Do we need a vehicles assessment? I mean, I understand you're doing the whole thing, but I got a feeling that you guys are pretty grounded. You'll be able to figure out what's going on over there, what actually needs a good look at, and it's probably not $25,000. I gotta get in that business, if that's the case. That's a lot of money for somebody to come in and just tell you what you need. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you, but I think that kind of works itself out if we're patient.
That's good. BJ, how long you been on board now?
Almost a year and a half.
That long. I will say, if you look at overtime requests, it hasn't changed. That's probably the first time in 30 years, I think, I've never seen that change. And I know from work with EJ, you've done a lot of this stuff. You've done a lot of changes, a lot of internal stuff. Here's a limit of how much you can do. And then some of that may be beyond your expertise. Or you need a neutral, somebody.
Fairness to EJ, he's only been officially the chief.
Right, but I do know he did a lot of
Oh, I know.
stuff, and I mean, there's a lot of investigation, a lot of changes, and I fall for the better, I believe, I mean, just from outside observation.
Do we have a sense of how we're gonna vote, or not?
I guess my only comment is, I think there's a lot of expertise, I'm looking at a lot of expertise right in front of me. And my question is, do we need to hire a third party to do what I think you guys are capable of? And,
We'll put it off.
that's just a,
We'll put it off for a year, and
observation,
then we'll give it to
but-
the selectmen.
Okay.
Actually, may I make a recommendation along those lines? If you have, and I don't know if you have the time for this, but since you do have the expertise, could you start an assessment on your own?
Absolutely.
And
Well, we
perform
have
like,
just some.
and I know you have been working, but, you know, putting it on paper, right? And,
Maybe a priority, so we have a sense of where this is going.
And,
Yeah.
and it comes from an observation that, you know, sometimes the expert is just someone that flew in from far away. They don't know anything necessarily more than you, but they're just, hey, the guy from over there, oh, well, that's just the expert.
I
Because
think
he's from far away, but I think you guys are experts.
I think we've got a consensus. Are we ready to vote?
Sure.
Okay, so if we vote this not recommend, it'll come back to us next year. And because that's our assumption. And we will reconsider it next year. And that's one of those carryover notes? It's important. Okay, we're ready to vote. Let's see what we have here. The selectmen haven't recommended it. So our motion would be to follow the selectmen's advice and not recommend this one this year.
Make a motion to conclude,
We can amend.
no,
Yeah, I mean,
conclude that
next year,
Article
as long as we-
15 is not recommended.
So moved.
Okay,
I'll second that.
is there, okay, you made them, you wanna second that?
Ken seconded from
Oh,
there.
you seconded, I'm sorry, you seconded it, okay. All right, are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor of not recommending for this year?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 2, okay, that's important, might as well get those 2 down.
I think it's a good idea, but I think you guys are capable of it.
All right, well, that's for, after the meeting, we can discuss that. No, it's a good point. Okay, let's move on. How are we doing? Is that? 18 is next. $10,000 for scuba. This one is not recommended.
SCBA.
They don't fight on
You
the
know, you
fire.
see that, and I just, I'm
When did we start
dyslexic.
fighting wars? Water.
Good thing we got the.
That's the almost scuba, self-contained. Sure. Okay, so this is $10,000, not recommended by the selectmen. The article is, okay. All right, so 10 grand to SCBA. Why does the selectmen not wanna recommend it?
Quickly as I can. We don't recommend it because currently we're in a 7-year lease that includes repair. They go out 10 years, correct?
Yes, it doesn't
So
include all.
we're gonna
of
have
it.
those paid off before they expire. We're not paying for repairs. At the end of 7 years, we could either lease brand new that includes repair or wait until the 10th year. But the last thing we wanna do is, from the selectmen's point of view, is to buy them because we have to repair them. It's much better to lease them, and we have ample time to save the money.
Okay, so you would rather lease than buy?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm on board.
okay, so we can pull that article? We don't need to even vote on it tonight. Okay, so lease rather than buy, all right, good.
So, yeah, so I'm sorry, can we just clarify in the
Sure.
notes
This is
that
great.
the reason why the selectmen are
This way we start.
not recommending it is because they would prefer to the town
Lease
lease.
rather than buy.
Okay, yes.
And then it said, accordingly, the fire engineers agreed to pull the article.
Okay.
So we will not vote, and this is treated as though we're not voting on this article, because it will be pulled. Okay, 19. Oh, that's not it, that's
20.
20, we're down to 20. Okay, the last one, okay. Summer, $10,000 fire department communications capital reserve fund. Okay, not recommended by the selectmen, again, very briefly, why not?
Briefly, we had in the budget last year, the money for 3 units. Now, we have asked, we have not been provided a detailed or a spreadsheet that would show the types and models of equipment we have now and can they all communicate together? So we haven't had the explanation, so given that, we're not recommending.
So I'd just like to say I've never been asked for our radio equipment spreadsheets.
This article doesn't say anything about radio equipment, I'm confused. Or am I
It's
missing it?
fire communications, which
That's
covers
technically radio.
some radio
Okay.
stuff,
I was
yes.
gonna say, I don't remember that request.
We've never been asked for that.
Okay, so this is going in a reserve fund.
Correct.
Uh,
For replacement of other units or repair to the tower, the.
Do you have any
antennas.
immediate plans for spending this money?
We do need a radio right away.
A radio, okay.
Does that go into radio maintenance line item on your budget?
No, we would overspend it because that one radio is almost $5,000.
So you need one.
Right now.
And there's 14 there now, right?
You gotta buy one radio already, and it's not in your budget.
So there was money in the capital outlay from last year that I was told it was use or lose. That I was planning on using that money for, because there was money left over in that account, that I was gonna buy that radio.
Okay, did you?
And then, no, because I was informed today that I can't.
Can I ask, are we talking a portable radio?
No, mobile radio. It's
Portable or mobile?
A piece of apparatus versus one that you can,
This is a portable.
that's a portable.
And a mobile is when it gets mounted in a vehicle.
The town budget called for 3 portable radios, as you requested last year in the budget. That was what was in the 2019 budget.
So, was that spent, that item?
Not yet.
No, I think there was 15,800 in that capital outlay and 5,800 was spent on the battery backup on the tower public service.
So the balance of 10
So
should go
we
back to general fund?
Unless the chief had ordered something
Nope.
by the end of the year.
Okay, so.
No.
Well, I was planning on using that radio, but I wasn't sure that I could use it for the mobile as opposed to a portable.
Gotcha, so what's the plan, so that 10,000, that net 10,000 will go back in the general fund?
Right.
What do you look at? Seems to me that the 10,000, you need 5,000 for the radio, so basically it's recovering what wasn't spent at year end.
Yes.
The, okay.
Isn't the 14,000, excuse me, isn't it 14,500 in reserve in that account?
Yeah, it says,
There's currently 14,500 in the account.
so that should buy the radio for 5. So we,
Yeah, it should.
so we could fund that one.
Correct.
You
Everybody
could,
but 10,000.
Then you, what's your long range
You're
plan?
draining your,
Right.
that account
Right.
down the road.
what is an appropriate balance that that fund should have?
Honestly, I'd like to be around 20 to 25 and kind of hang there.
And
Same
if
thing,
you
and
look at-
this could be similar to that, like repair, that we get to a point and stop
Right.
as well.
Can you lease those?
No. I'd love to.
And in view of the fact that we gave that 10, we're all ready to go.
Just a question for the fire chief. The radio that I saw submitted was a boat radio.
No, it's a marine radio for the boat, but it's a fixed radio, it's not a portable radio.
So our boat did not come with a marine?
Not a fire department radio, no.
Oh, not a fire department radio.
Correct.
It has
It has a
a fisherman radio, but you
Got it.
could talk to the Coast Guard on, but it doesn't allow, it doesn't have reserve.
I got marine portable, so you
Any sense on this?
Was there any reason why the people operating the boat wouldn't have either one within their uniform?
They do,
or-
it's very hard to reach because you're down lower in the water.
It doesn't come in.
And the
Because the
topography.
antenna.
Well, so
Yeah,
these
flash.
radios run off the battery on them. The mobile radio that's attached to the vehicle runs off the 12 volt of the vehicle, big car battery, so you get significantly more amplification out of it because you're running on stronger.
So these are only 5 watts, those are 100 watts, the mobile radios.
So once you get
We're
out.
talking about the river, right?
Yes, yeah, the revenue, yeah.
Okay.
These from here to the other side of town won't transmit without something repeating them. So when we send a signal out with this, it goes to an antenna that then amplifies the signal to send it to everyone else because they don't work super long distances.
And that wouldn't work in the bay?
No, because of how old.
Because of the topography, because we're lower down the water than the land.
Line of sight.
as well, too.
Yeah, it doesn't work well. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Good invention, someone needs to develop that technology.
They do, it's just super expensive.
the selectmen is not recommended.
It'd be 24,000, 25,000.
Yeah, I don't know that we do have this, Eleanor or Martha, but do you know what the balance in the deposits of that account have been over the past few years? I mean, what's the fund balance been fluctuating between over the past 5 years?
Probably fold.
I don't think we did anything last year.
Up in that.
Right, you're right.
Because if it needs to be, you know, they're asking for 20 or 25 to be a revolving fund, but if it needs to be 10, let's just figure this out.
Cause I believe they were gonna put, were they gonna put money in last year and they ended up pulling it out to use it toward the
Yes.
capital outlay? Is that what that was? Yes.
We're supposed to go into that and.
Yes,
Is it,
right,
I think you're right, Gene. I think you're right on that.
right, that was the.
And I don't immediately see anything in 2018's warrant.
Okay, so.
If you
So
have,
essentially, the money that we've gone into it last year went into the outlay.
if you have to replace all your radios that this article, this fund covers, how much is that?
So each one of these radios,
All of them.
well, so one of these radios is about $4,000,
And how many of those do you have?
15 anyways. And then the bigger ones are almost $5,000.
So all your radios are at
Super
$100,000 or whatever.
Well, just like the battery backup that we were talking about, that's up on the power plant, just the battery backup was $6,000,
Right.
$1,500.
Okay, I would accept a motion, you needed a motion to recommend or not recommend. I don't wanna go through double negatives here, but if someone wants to make a motion, either way, well, this is $10,000.
I'll move to, recommend the article.
Alright,
The,
is there,
can we do
Oh,
a second?
we could,
I'd like
again.
to discuss it.
okay, alright,
Who seconded?
you know,
Ken.
Ken, okay, we had discussed it a lot, so be quick.
Is there room for a friendly amendment where you would rewrite this, bring it back to us for 5,000?
Yes.
There you go. So you want tables, or you wanna vote this one down?
I don't think we had a second on this one yet.
No, that would,
We
the first would have to.
Yeah,
we got a motion?
yeah, do we wanna withdraw it, or do you wanna change your motion to table? Looks like we have a negotiated settlement.
Well,
I'm sorry.
I just thought it'd be money well spent. I've seen their equipment and I can see the need for having a capital fund of the size that the chief suggests.
Alright, okay.
So that was my rationale for recommending
Who
this
seconded,
motion.
who seconded that?
Ken did, so we'll vote on that.
The vote was to
To
recommend.
recommend the 10,000.
Yeah, okay. All in favor?
Of what now?
We're going to recommend.
We're voting recommend ten
Full
thousand.
10, because that's what the thing was. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Alright, looks like it carries. Alright, now, we trust you guys to manage your radio, you know, and I'm sure you will. It's a lot of money in radios. I do wanna make this one point about spend it or lose it. When you really need it, that's good. If you don't need it, please don't spend money.
No, that's why I only wanted that 5.
It doesn't really go away. I mean, the fact that you could live with 5, so now you're gonna, you get your 5 and you're gonna have 5 to add to that fund, if the town recommends it. So you're in good shape, right? Okay. All right.
We hope to build trust in the board as well, that if you don't use the funds that you were going to use, and you do need it the following year, that it will be there, and that we'll be able to listen to you. Go a long way.
Okay, folks, we have I think that's the last of the warrants, right?
Yes, sir.
We have the main budget.
Just get started.
Ryan, 13. Yes, 13. Do we have a bottom line here?
Yep.
1,918,762.
Okay, 1,918,762. Someone wanna move that? Okay, is there a second?
Okay.
This is the selectmen's budget. We are working for. So what I'd like to do is just go down really quickly, and if there is an issue, from anybody, let me know. But just starting at the top, set of questions.
Before you do, can I start at the bottom line and ask, this is an increase of what percent over last year? 9.41 increase.
Are we working off the selectmen budget?
Yes.
It would be 9.4.
This is the selectmen's budget.
Right, but what Jamie just said.
The
8.34 is the selectmen's budget increase.
Yeah, you need to use the budget that's in
Yeah,
the book,
no, I know.
because it's the right sequence. Don't use the fire department's budget if you have a copy.
Yeah, I'm not, I just wanted, he said 9.
That's too far over, it's one back over.
Would that raise taxes by 9%?
Martha, what would the tax implications be between the warrant and this?
Well, we're not talking about the warrants.
No.
We understand the warrants are expensive. But this budget is, it's pretty easy, it's what, it's $1 for every million, or every,
Pretty much.
$1 million.
Standard, yes.
I have a suggestion that maybe you could get us home earlier tonight.
Mhm.
We have questioned 3 items. All the other items we're endorsing and support.
Okay, so the Board of Engineers and the Selectmen are together on all but 3 items.
Correct.
Okay, I would then entertain the 3 items that you're part on. You still can ask questions, but I think you're right, this may save us some time. So, can you guide us through those and the board will,
I'll identify the 3 and then we can have discussion. The 3 items, first is protective clothing.
where is that?
What number is that?
Protective clothing is last page 681.
The other one is legal. And the last one would be the paramedic.
Professional training.
Professional training, thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
Which one are you starting?
Please start at the beginning.
Okay. Do you want to address those, or did somebody want to get anything else in we discussed?
We suggested, yes, that
I was-
if there's a position open, excuse me.
I was talking to the board in
Oh,
general.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any other questions now, or do you want to address those
I
three?
think we could start with those 3, but I do have other questions.
Of course,
I do
yeah,
too.
right, and I'm not freezing us out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start with the first, what was the number of the first one again?
Was it 290, professional training?
Second up from the bottom first.
Second up at the bottom, first.
Professional training, there it is, okay.
Let
So-
me get to that page.
First page.
Page 1.
Page 1.
Second on the bottom, Ken.
2 up from the bottom.
Okay, so you got,
Right here, got it. Okay.
you got 6,000 and the department wanted 19,000, is that correct?
Nope,
All right, am I reading the numbers wrong?
we requested 6,000 as well.
Oh, so you're together on that one?
Yep.
Yes.
We dropped the paramedic training to
You did,
13,000.
all right, good. So we're saving time already.
Wonderful.
We're on board on that one, okay.
Stay on the
Well,
first
thank-
page,
thank you.
Emily.
What's the next one?
Legal.
Emily, you wanna stay on the first page, I do.
Well, I do.
I do too.
Oh, all right, okay. It's your committee. Okay, you got questions on the first page? Go ahead. Emily, you got the floor.
I just wanted to bring up, I know that we had talked about this at the previous meeting with the police department, but the health insurance cost is just really, the cost of it going up every year, the rate it's going up is extreme, and I know that's something we are gonna discuss, I believe, next week, maybe, but
Right.
I wanted to just bring that up again.
And currently, we're in union negotiations, so the selectmen are certainly working on it.
Okay, perfect.
Union negotiations with the fire department.
Right.
That's the only unionized.
Correct.
When's the expiration of the current agreement?
June, or
This
April
April.
1st. April 1st.
April.
Not that far away.
Now, where are these, I know discussions are tricky, but is this at issue? Changing the terms of the insurance?
So we can't say.
It's gonna
We
have,
have signed a confidentiality agreement, we cannot discuss contract negotiations.
yeah, so we really have to wait till you've got them negotiated.
We cannot discuss contract negotiations.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah, okay.
So the
Unfortunately,
intent-
I would zero out that line item and see what happens.
Self-insured. One for John.
Jen?
I have a question on the holiday pay. Just if people could,
Yep.
just a little background on that. Just the percentages, 36.6, the difference from previous years.
So what had happened was the difference from last year to this year is it wasn't calculated correctly last year, that there was 2 other members that were supposed to get holiday pay. So it's just, that's the only increase.
Okay.
So the 2 other members that were supposed to get holiday pay represent 37% of your employee.
Look at what they spent. Who did budget on that?
There's an increase of 36.82%.
It went from 23 to 31 is the number I'm looking at, right?
Right. Yeah, 23,000 to 31,000.
Yes. 36%.
Yes.
That's like an end of the year, like police do a big
Yep.
one check?
No, we do it biannually.
Okay, but it's like, well, if you work a holiday, you get paid, if you like, you are.
No, everybody gets holiday pay.
Okay.
I need to get
This doesn't make a lot of sense though. In 2018, we spent $19,000 for, besides the +1 firefighter that we hired last year, right? Then in 2019, obviously this is short of the holiday season, 12,000, with a budget of 23,000. This year it's going up to 31,000, because for the past 2 years, we've left out 2 employees.
I know last year, the year before, I'm not sure.
So is it back pay that we're paying them?
No,
It's just where,
no, that is the new number.
So that is the normal?
With the coal.
Is it possible that money went out after the 10th of
Oh,
December?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's why,
Part of that increase too is an increase in hourly rate, because holiday pay is based on hourly rate. So as people get a COLA or a step increase, their hourly rate increases. So as their hourly rate increases, that number naturally for everyone increases a little bit. It's 36% because there are 2 more on top of that increase that were missed the year before.
How many,
Does that make more
what was
sense?
the old number of employees and the new number?
Bizarre.
How many, when you say you added 2, total what?
Well, it
like
should have been
12?
10, and it was only, it was figured out for 8.
8, so 25% higher.
Yes, and then
Plus-
you add
plus-
that,
Yes.
the increased COLA and whatnot, it creates a larger number than the 25.
How do you guys forget 2 people?
previous,
The number is correct now.
Where did
Me, I remember.
where did their pay come from? Is it overtime? I'm assuming they got paid.
No, they
They just didn't get it.
They didn't get it when they were supposed to.
Probably going further than that, they're running a new
Chief,
uniform.
assistant chief.
Go back to the volunteer fire department.
Sign up.
I haven't been paid 3 years.
Okay, any other questions on the first page?
Yeah, so one more question about the health insurance. So the health insurance, the fire department, as of right now in fiscal year 2019, was still under the town's base policy. So that what the town has for a policy for all its employees, that's what the fire
Right,
department gets.
right.
Gotcha.
It went up $91,000.
Yep.
And this is, I mean, the reason this budget is higher is because that's the bill with existing standards, right?
Right, and some firemen changed from getting a buyout
Correct, we
to
used to have-
getting a, family plan, so that of course,
Out of the 10, we used to have 2 that got the buyout, and then Darren passed away, he was one of the buyouts, then the other one changed and went to a family plan, which jumps up huge, and then one of the other singles went to a 2-person. So now everybody's on town's insurance.
How many employees are still on the 100% because they were hired before 2012?
On the percentage, one.
this is really, I think, in the selectmen's budget, right? Like we said,
Yeah.
strategy in terms of health insurance.
Yeah,
Right,
this is anticipated with the current contract, the current insurance rates, this is what the company's gonna charge us now. And a lot of that increase, as you said, was internal because people changed policies, we had family plans instead of single plans.
Is there a way ahead of that meeting where there has been some discussion about the health insurance to get some, I mean, sort of we're seeing it in different pieces with the departments, but is there a way to get that kind of, you know, this is how many employees we have that are on the insurance, this, you know, some sort of breakdown so that we have a better idea of numbers?
You know, it's a huge expense, and that would be worth doing, and I would think would be under the selectmen's budget,
Yeah.
because they have the others, and, it's just, you could give us kind of a review of what our health costs are, what our policies are. The town may not know that people pay 10%.
Right.
For a long time, it was 100, but town paid everything, and I never knew they changed.
Yeah,
I've been around town forever.
Is it, do we pay 90% now?
That
Right,
is
it's
extreme
like
minority.
We
Oh, yeah.
There is nobody left.
There were
Except
motions
that
from-
90%.
there were motions from the floor to make the employees start paying, and that got defeated some years back. I, just an observation, if nothing else, the, sick pay buyback went from 397 to 6604, which means that employees were encouraged not to take sick days.
Correct.
I think that's another reflection on some of the changes over
Yeah,
there.
it was
I agree with
one
that.
of the first years ever that there was people turning time back in.
Yeah, never used to see that.
I think part of that was some buy-in from the members of the department. It was a difficult year for everyone. Everyone did a really good job pitching in and staying together. And
No, it's
Thank you.
kudos
so I'm
on
to
that.
speak to them for it.
Great.
Anything else on the first page?
So we use one, two, three, six,
Yeah.
We'll go over to the second page, and now let's come back.
We can go over Ken's legal line again.
Okay, where is that?
Second thirty.
Second from the top.
330, second page.
Second page.
Second
second
page,
one up.
second one back.
30, I see, legal, okay, yep. So, the department wanted 6,000, the selectmen, I guess, are sticking with the idea of funding that with common legal funds, whatever they need.
Yes, Martha wanted to speak first and then I will last, but if that's okay, John.
All right.
Briefly.
I may defer to Martha.
There are two groups within town that have statutory authority to spend legal money. They are the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board. The Board of Selectmen believes that the fire department can continue to use the legal line with no concern. There has been an issue raised about retaining or having a retainer paid to an attorney rather than an hourly rate. The town has looked at that in the past and found that that's a risk that we take when we move to a retainer, because if you don't spend those funds, they're gone anyway. So we would recommend that this be zeroed out and that the fire department, as has been the case all along, continue to seek legal counsel through the town's municipal council.
The fire department is anticipating negotiations, right?
Right, currently in negotiations, right.
And it may be that they need some attorney's help with that.
And we have a joint management team with the Board of Selectmen and the fire engineers, and they work with one attorney that I believe has been acceptable to all.
Okay, but you're gonna be sure that your legal account is funded to manage this contingency.
Absolutely. If I may add to that now, John.
No, I want to take Brandon's.
Just ask a question really quick. So the things to do with negotiation with the town between the union, right? You guys should have funded by dues a union representative.
No. The
We're the
union has their own attorney.
Correct.
Right, which you guys can use for any legal matters that
No.
don't have to.
No.
That's the union.
No.
Completely separate from the fire department.
We are the town of
I
Newington.
understand, clear thing. The union, if you had any legal negotiations that had to happen with the town, meaning union versus town,
Yes,
that is covered by your union dues and your union representative, correct?
correct.
Okay, so any other things that don't have a conflict of interest with the town would be, you'd be fine to use a municipal style attorney, right, that we would be using anyways? The only thing I can see outside of a municipal style attorney that you would need to use for legal matters would be if it was something concerning the union v town, but
we have that covered, right? Is there any other situations where you need to have an attorney that is separate from one that represents the municipality?
The only comment to that is technically the employer, the termination of an employee is based on the Board of Fire Engineers. So it would be the Board of Fire Engineers versus the union. It may or may not be the selectmen on termination.
Yeah, they are the employer.
Negotiations is done with both because of course the selectmen control the budget for that.
This, in case of a termination.
Termination,
contested,
grievance, things like that would
That's-
technically go to the Board of Fire Engineers,
Yeah.
not necessarily involved.
This is-
They would need legal
I
help.
think there was an
From
agreement
town.
signed years back between the fire engineers and the selectmen, agreeing that the fire engineers are the employers.
Yeah. Okay, Ken.
If I may speak to that, first, no department or any board has been denied legal counsel by the selectman's office. Second, this budget committee several years ago recommended combining all of the small accounts into one to see a cost savings. The third thing was the state statute. The only one that applies to is the planning board. And last, but perhaps most important, when the fire department had a separate legal budget 2 years ago, and the first audit took place, the recommendation from the town auditors was to do some activities, submit time cards or whatever. The Fire Board of Engineers did not accept that opinion. They hired a third-party attorney using town money to argue against the town audit that they were the employer and they didn't need to submit those time cards. The auditors proved different, and most importantly, we had a ruling this year that any business dealing with the fire department that could cost money or present a challenge or a suit against the town, the Board of Selectmen can and should be made aware. So there's really no reason to have a separate account. They can draw on our account, the town that every other department will draw on, and seek legal counsel. When the opinion was given that they didn't have to respond to the town audit, it was incorrect information. It was against the law for statutes. They cannot refuse to give information to the prudential authority of the town, and that has been determined. Ted, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I think that covers it.
I'd like to reply, maybe I should have been put in jail, because I wrote the letter, I did the research. The only thing the attorney researched was the vehicle being used by the police chief, because that was in his contract.
I think both of you have gone into territory that I really don't want to go
No,
into.
but I won't,
On a
but
budget.
disparaging an attorney had nothing to do with what he did, had nothing to do with, I wrote the letter,
All right,
and I researched it.
okay.
And that was my opinion. The Board of Fire Engineers at the time agreed, and since then, things have changed. As far as funding individual legal accounts, new boards have changed their opinion. Many, many years ago, the board of, the budget committee said, no, we should break up that legal fund into the little departments, and then, so that changed. And then since then, new boards have different opinions, that's why it's back the other way. So things go back and forth depending on.
Yeah, if I can give a refresher on the essence behind that, it's basically that we don't need a bunch of $5,000 budget line items all throughout every different board in town that usually end up getting misused for extra funds because we didn't need it. And it seemed to me that if we're all using the same general counsel for all the different boards in town, then we ought to centralize.
No, I'm just saying that 20 years ago, the board, the
Sure.
budget committee thought, gee, you know, we should break it up. And now it's gone back down. I'm not arguing whether it's right or wrong, I'm just saying things change.
Okay.
I don't think the deciding factor,
Wait
however,
a minute, let me recognize you if you wanna say something. We're discussing now the attorney, whether we have a centralized attorney, individual attorney. Okay, now, if you're you're talking about that, that's fine.
I'll withdraw my comment.
Is there any need from the Board of Fire Engineers to have a specific attorney that is outside of the municipal one that gets hired by the town?
Ours was cheaper.
It's,
Besides that,
it's financial. It's financial. To pay à la carte rates, it's all the same money. If the money is there, if the money is here, it's all the town's money. À la carte rates for what we may need with town council is far more expensive than to have a retainer or a line item of a certain amount of money. Not a lot of money, $6,000 is not a lot of money. To have that there for use if we need it. It's strictly financial and it's our budget and we don't wanna spend extra money that we don't have to.
yeah, I can appreciate that. I just think as far as board consideration, the cemetery committee can make the same argument. Right, I mean, every
Yeah.
single department down the line can make the same
Yeah, I
argument.
mean, the selectmen's gonna have to decide, which attorney you hire, whether you wanna go à la carte, or whatever, hourly, or you wanna put somebody on retainer for a specific thing. I mean, you need to manage the central legal account. Doesn't mean that you can't hire a different lawyer who may be more specific, or doesn't mean you can't put somebody on retainer, but that's your decision.
Beyond that, it's very important though that we use the town attorneys, because we could end up in a situation where we get a wrong opinion, and then that opinion could come back against the town.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on this item? Jamie?
Just a question. We've tried it both ways, it sounds like. Did we find out that one way is cheaper
Yes.
Well, it also.
than the other?
One of the
In
causes.
this case, in the fire, like in the overall, if you look
Jamie,
at.
one of the big causes for the change more contemporarily recently is because legal budgets have grown,
Yes.
right? Because everything is so litigious, so it was probably 4 or 5 years ago where we said, it was every department has a $10,000 budget line item, every single committee.
Right.
So it really became in vogue because of that, because every single department.
So have we found that, since we changed it, that
Yeah, good question.
our legal, expenses have, improved?
Martha?
I would just add that years ago, the Board of Selectmen and the fire engineers had a disagreement, and the Board of Fire Engineers sued the Board of Selectmen. So we were paying duplicate legal fees on an issue. And I think that played into the selectmen's and the budget committee's decision that we should really centralize.
So it's not so much a rate thing, it's more of a situation thing like that.
I'm working together.
Issues.
So,
Can there be a conflict with that though? I guess what I'm trying to understand is if a department needs to take action on something and they're forced to use a town attorney, how can we be convinced that the town attorney is gonna have that department's best interest if they're representing the town and not the department? And it's a question.
Right, and
Right.
I would respond that your 3 members of the Board of Selectmen have been hired to oversee the town's budget and the town's legal services, and we have to trust them.
And we do put excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we do put the legal out to bid, and we get new bids this year on rates for attorneys. I mean, so it's not the good old boy, it's put out to
Again, I
bid.
don't wanna belabor it, but the problem with that would be, is you could get a legal opinion outside of the town attorneys that could come back on the town.
Yeah, okay, and you did make that point, and you made it again, which is good.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Okay, yes.
I just add a little information, because I sat on the budget committee many years ago. And as you know, my biggest complaint sitting on that budget committee was the legal fees I thought were way too high for the town. So what we've been doing, implementing this year and last year, with the help of Ted and of course with Kenny coming on board, is we're putting things out to bid. And for example, we saved $40,000 on the bid for the roof of this building. We just saved $70,000 a year by putting out the bid for the assessing department for the town. That's a hell of a lot of money. Now, if we can get the consolidation of the legal end, now we can bid out our legal fees. We can start putting a bite on the attorneys that they're charging too much money. And I think that is a good way to go.
this was something I was complaining about, like I said, day one, 8 years ago when I was on the budget committee. And it's starting to show some fruition.
Do we ever make use of NHMA legal assistance?
Absolutely, Martha, I use that all the time. And I use it first before I use anything
Yeah,
else.
sure, I mean, that's free, and we're not, it's part of our membership.
Absolutely.
Lawyers' fees are negotiable, as much as I tell you they're not.
They're not.
They are.
Well,
They are, okay, yes, did you have?
I would like to clarify, Martha brought up not that long
Who's the other
ago,
way around?
that the Board of Fire Engineers sued the selectmen. In that action, the Board of Fire Engineers prevailed.
Okay, good point.
But if I may.
Oh, no,
Okay.
Okay,
That case is closed, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It was
let's
settled.
move on.
all right.
It was settled.
Okay, any further discussion on this line item? Okay. Let's move on now. Anything else on this page? Yes.
I would just like to commend the fire department on their computer expense line item.
I didn't hear that. Please say that.
I'd like to commend the fire department on their computer expense line item. They have, you know,
Down 75.
clearly they have found a solution for their IT needs, and I'm happy to see that.
That's good.
Yes, they have. Absolutely.
Good point. Anything else on that page?
Yeah, let me just explain the telephone.
Mr. Chairman,
Is this about the telephone?
no, I
Okay,
just
let's
wanted to
answer-
respond to Emily.
I'm sorry. Well, let's answer his question
Okay.
first, then I'll let you respond. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
the telephone.
The telephone, so we have changed over to a whole new system, voice over IP, cellular backup. So before there was one line coming in, nobody could have their own individual, if somebody was on the line, they couldn't have somebody on call park essentially. So now with this system, each office has its own line, it's still one line coming in, but where it's voice over IP, you can split. Each of the dedicated offices has their own voicemail, they get an email notification and everything, so. But part of that, is also the cell phones and the iPads. We've completely changed. We've gone pretty much, probably about 80% paperless, 85%? 85% paperless. So between the iPads and being able to do everything that we can do, it's just brought us up to where we need to be in the 20th century.
Is that appropriated? Was that part of the plan? Looks like we overspent the budget line item pretty significantly.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
2019 budget as approved was $8,900, and this year we spent $12,000 with a new department.
Correct, because we changed it halfway through the year to go to the upgrades.
Poor estimate.
Well, how did that happen, guys? 2018 budget was less than $5,000. 2019 went to $9,000. We spent $12,000. I get the upgrade thing, but how'd you miss it by 50 points? You missed it by 50
Because the cost of the materials.
You just misestimated them?
That wasn't the original game plan when we started this whole upgrade of the IT stuff, was switching over to the newer iPads and everything. So the iPads that we previously had didn't have anything other than, there was no cellular data with them. So the pre-plans and the response data that we have on the iPads now, as soon as you drove out of the station lost Wi-Fi, they were useless.
So why is it going up again?
That's the anticipated cost. I believe the cost is 13 something.
So none of this is acquisition costs, these are the new normal?
The 14 would be the new normal.
Does anybody forgive me, this probably sounds too stupid. Did anybody consulted on what was going on here? Where did that come from? You guys overspent the line by 50% and now we got an increase. Is that part of the big picture? That wasn't part of the radios and everything else.
That's just as we were going through the upgrades that we were trying to do and seeing what we could do and what we needed to do to get to that position, to that next level to bring us up to speed.
Unilaterally, you guys just, this is where we're going.
I could add that in 2019, the fire department had a proposed, 5 iPad and 3 cell phone replacements. And that was in the computer line actually for $20,000. So they had talked to us about it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so some of that.
Something just in a different
Sorry,
account.
make the comment. Right.
So take your comment back, as you just did.
So is it in the wrong account? Or?
I think it started out of the other account, but now it follows the cost of it under this account.
It's the operating cost instead of.
Correct.
So that explains some of the changes in the computer account, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway.
Move on from that one.
Yeah.
Any
Ambulance billing.
any further comments?
Yeah, ambulance billing went from 0 to, what is it?
$10,000.
$10,000. You guys used to bill.
So that, the cost for the billing company used to come out of the ambulance revenue, which essentially is out of the general fund. And the selectmen wanted it back as a line item in our budget.
We can't charge, an expense to a revenue line. It was just something that over the years had been overlooked, and it needed to be added into the budget line.
It was recommended by the auditor.
Right,
The auditor's
right.
recommended.
So it was being spent, but somewhere?
Yeah, it was subtract from our revenue,
Okay,
which
so.
you can't do that. They would
Okay,
give
I
us
understand,
that.
okay, so it still shows 77,000 in revenue when you figure out your tax rate, but you have to offset
But
that.
this is a net zero tax impact, because it's
Yes.
canceled off. Gotcha.
We'll get, more in revenue to offset the 10,000. Jamie?
On line 560, dues and subscriptions. 2018 spent was 2,406. Budgeted was 4,000. Budgeted again 4,000 in 2019, but only spent again about 2,500. Why don't we budget 2,500 or 3,000?
So part
Why is there 4,000 again?
So part of the reason with
Do you think that it's going up?
the down things are going up, like our dues membership to the Seacoast Chiefs just went up a couple $100. Yeah, the air trailer commitment went up.
Did it go up $1,000?
No, not total, but the accumulation is going up.
So we should, but
And then we didn't have a full year with the chief as far as his dues for like IFC and a couple other memberships. That now we're gonna have 2 chiefs for a full year.
I propose to put that to 3,000 instead of 4,000. That's still more than your 2,500 that you spent the last 2 years. It still gives $400 or $500 of padding.
But, by him saying by delaying an assistant chief for 4 months, you saved that 4 months that you would have spent this year in that line. So
Potentially.
really, could have been higher. I'd like to.
And then there's a couple things that like Darren didn't sign up for last year, because obviously being as sick as he was, he couldn't commit to committees or anything like that, so.
I agree with Jim, if it's a continued trend, John, I would agree with.
But that's the point, is that, you're spending this and this,
I would say.
it's just $1,000. It's not a lot of money, but it's just a concept.
Absolutely.
Watch it for this year.
Yeah, Ken?
I would like to recommend that we take it back to the $2,573. Inadvertently, this year, there was a charge to that account that was never in the budget for approval. And that was for a public relations expenditure of $1,182. That's never been listed, and actually, it doesn't belong in the 560 object code series. It belongs in the 300 under contracted services. So, question is, the public relations really should not have been taken out of that line item. So if we pull that 1,200 out, put it back down to the 2,500. Is that clear?
And where are you putting the 1,200 that you pull out?
Not going to, it's for public relations. And
Okay, so you wanna change the budget and submit a new budget?
So we have a contract with public relations.
No, I would ask them, I would ask the committee to take that down to the 2,573 or the 2,406.
Yeah, but we're voting on a budget.
Right.
So, do you wanna change the budget, or do you want us to not go with the selectmen's recommendation and
So,
propose less money?
can I just add one thing?
Yeah,
This is as of December 10th. We've made more expenditures out of that account
okay.
since then.
I understand that, but there was that $1,100 one. $1,100.
So we have a subscription to a PR fund.
It's a subscription.
It's an annual cost to a public relations firm that handles all of our websites and everything else. Handles our
It's an
PR,
electronic,
our press releases and
I
everything else.
understand that, but it's not clearly identified, nor was it approved.
Is the question it was mischarged to a
Approved by
wrong
what?
line?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
So
Yes.
sounds like you were charged on the wrong line, and that happens. So you did do
Well,
a
that
journal
happens
entry and change it.
occasionally, it gets closer to the wrong account.
Yeah, that doesn't, and if it is, then if you decrease that, the offset should be an increase somewhere else. We're only voting borrow.
Right, but he's saying not increasing on the
but
other
that's what
end.
I'm saying, if it's coming out, well, then where is it,
If you still
where do
need
you
to,
want
if
it
it's a
booked?
contract, then you gotta honor it for a subscription, which is a contract.
If you don't wanna post it there, where do you wanna post it?
Contract services, I think is what you said.
Contracted
Okay, so
service.
can we do a
Okay,
journal
so-
entry to contracted services in
Yeah.
terms of bookkeeping? That's the observation. I think that might solve the problem. Okay, good.
But I just am curious, because even if we do that, there's still, in 2018, the expenditure was 2406. So even if we take that money and move it somewhere else, but I think overall, I think, you know, we voted to give them a year to kind of figure things out, right?
Yeah, that's
So I think that, you know, maybe we should consider kind of leaving it alone and seeing
Under the,
where things
a
fall
year to
in
figure
that
things
spirit.
out,
Yes.
move it, which is, that's
Yeah.
fair, that's a
Right.
good observation.
1.9 million, you're talking 1,100 bucks.
Right.
It's not a lot of money.
Administrative.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no.
But the point is,
You don't have a contract.
I have a place
Yeah.
to try,
Right. Yeah.
20 years worth.
It's not like a lot of money, it's just a
Right.
point, if it's $2,500 for 3 years, then maybe it should be $2,500.
So let's try to, you know, next year,
And that costs
let's
them
get a little more accurate, and
Yeah.
it sounds like people want the other thing in contract services.
Uh-huh.
So it's fine.
Can we get down to 631, please? This is the SCBA's, and obviously are there any SCBA's that are outside of lease or the 7-year warranty?
So that covers more than just the SCBA's, that's our fill equipment, it's extra masks if we needed something, if something breaks. Maintenance is not completely covered under the agreement that we have. If we break something, we still need to get it repaired and or replaced.
And that's, you guys are spending that.
Looks like they've spent
When,
4,100 and then
excuse
52.
me, G, when that was presented to us, the whole idea of leasing was that maintenance was not an issue, whether they were broken or worn out. The lease purchase covers the repair and maintenance. That's what was presented to us.
I can't speak to it because I didn't do that presentation.
If in fact it was an error, it was that, an error. Moving forward, this is the correct information.
Okay,
An error is just that, an error.
Okay.
Well,
Is there any
again,
chance?
the impact is a unit, and then the filling station is not a lease equipment, I don't think, a mass and hoses, so there are some.
We also have
Right.
2 air packs that are not part of that lease, they're for firefighter rescue, there's specific air packs for that are not involved in that lease, that are both on the older side. They don't get used often, so there are no need to replace them, but there's still a maintenance cost associated with testing and making sure the service.
And we did have a prior chief that was intimately involved with this budget, and we've come in on the backside of that. So if there are some nits and bugs, that's where we are.
So can I ask
I totally understand.
Ask a question then, if we're not voting to fund Article 18, which is the SCBA replacement, because our plan is to go forward to lease these things on 7 years, should we also be funding a $6,000 budget line item if we have $20,000 in that fund that we don't plan on funding any longer? Or can we use that money to,
That warrant article's not spelled out that way though.
You can't change the purpose,
We have to change the purpose of a warrant article.
SCBA Equipment Capital Reserve Fund?
Replacement of the SCBA. It doesn't say anything in there about repairs or testing.
You have to go back to the original warrant article that established the capital reserve fund, and it's usually, the one that's very specific, that's been around a while.
That $6,000 in there covers the testing. Every year, all packs have to be tested. I don't know, unless we can come up with a lease that was signed, I don't know if the lease covers that testing. There's fit testing every year to make sure that their masks that they're wearing fit them. That's an FPA requirement every year.
Yeah.
And that's not cheap.
So how can we figure out, or can we, Chairman, figure out how we can, use the $21,000 that's sitting there gonna rot if we're gonna keep on?
We would have,
turning over
that
these?
warrant article would have to be rewritten to say replacement and repairs.
Right, and then we could.
The other option with that.
Which article is that?
That's Article 18 that we voted down and did not recommend.
At some point, those two packs that are not in the lease will eventually need to be replaced. They are
But
more expensive than a general.
Because
SCBA.
what we're voting is not to put more money into it. The unaudited,
But based on
the balance is still there.
correct,
It's usable.
we're not putting more money in it based on the premise that we won't be using capital funds to capital purchase new SCBA's that we're going to roll 7-year, 10-year
Yeah,
leases.
yeah, we'd have to vote to repurpose it.
Gotcha, okay.
Um,
Might be worth looking at instead of spending $6,000 and holding on to 21,000.
Mhm. But, this is for purchase, you know, replacement of fire department's good, well, okay.
If you don't need it.
If in the end they don't,
Dissolve it and return whatever balances back to the town, that's another warrant article.
Well, we'll look at it and, I mean, it would have to change it to read replacement and repair.
Right.
That's the only way you would be able to get rid of, to knock down that line.
and I'd rather, we just went with the fire, and I'd rather keep those separate.
Yep.
And I'd rather you repair be in the annual budget, I'd rather anything be in the annual budget, if we can afford.
Because that's an accurate picture.
That's an accurate picture.
That's right.
Okay,
Agreed.
but anyway, the money is there, it's not gonna go away, we'll figure out, either they'll need to buy something, or they can, as you said, they can dissolve it and put it back into the budget. If they decide to lease, completely. But maybe these other 2 units, they're not gonna lease. Okay. Anything else on that second page? Okay, how about the last page?
The only comment, again, the same comment I had on line 560 down to line 632, which is radio maintenance. 55 was budgeted in 2018, 35 was spent, 35 was budgeted in 2019, 2,700 was spent. Now we're going back up to 2,500, 5,500? Is that appropriate? Going to expect more?
So the run rate's been less.
Yeah.
The average of spending has been down here, and all of a sudden we went back up. Do we
So
think
that
we
was
need-
increased by the selectmen. Our original budget that we submitted to you was 3,500.
Right,
Okay.
I got a department, I'm sorry. The department budget on here is 5,500,
5,500.
and so is the selectmen.
That's not the budget that was submitted to you guys.
Yeah, the budget figures I have that is 35.
Okay, so I put that in mistake or something.
is that just a typo?
Sounds like.
No, we were never submitted, we never received the
Second one,
budget that
page
said
2.
3,500.
Yeah, I can show you the email.
So should we change it to 3,500 as requested?
Well, you could do that, it means you're gonna change the bottom line, we could do that. And the selectmen could possibly submit a new budget, which we could vote on, and then we'd be in agreement. Otherwise, it's gonna be confusing at the town to say why you're disagreeing with the selectmen. I'm happy to disagree with the selectmen when I disagree with it. But in this case, it looks like a basically clerical error.
Right.
So we either leave the $2,000 in there, in the budget, or we submit a new budget, the selectmen submit a new budget for less than $2,000 less, assuming we agree on everything else.
Martha?
Possibly the engineers and the selectmen could meet and work this out
I
and
think we
come
can.
back to the.
That's just one
Sounds
line.
like a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, that's one line.
For $2,000?
Right, 2,000.
Well,
Why don't we
it
simply amend the
appears there's
budget?
much more
Right.
than
You can,
that.
but
right?
at town
In
meeting,
the
it'll be
works?
a little bit more confusing when the selectmen have
Say
it
again?
and then the department and the.
It's
It
just one
appears
line.
there's
I know it's
much
only
more than
$2,000,
that.
But we're gonna vote on the
Just-
So the
bottom
question,
line.
that's my question, it's only $2,000, do you wanna leave it in the budget, or do you wanna take it out? If you wanna take it out, those are the
The
options.
warrant article will give 2 numbers, the selectmen's recommendation and the budget.
Right.
And they vote on the budget.
And they always vote on ours, so we could change it,
Yeah, sure, and the
I
selectmen
mean,
don't really ask.
$2,000
And
is
if they
out
ask,
of
the
6
selectmen
million
would
or
say,
whatever.
they found that money and we're happy with
We
it.
could, when we do the public here, we can.
So is this as simple as Martha and I can sit down and go through this, tweak some stuff, they could resubmit to you guys, and we can agree to it or something,
Well,
or?
we gotta know what you're tweaking, that's the only way.
Yeah.
we-
That's
So
the only
far,
way.
that's
We're
what
not-
we-
yeah,
again,
we're not going tweaking everything.
That would
Well,
take.
We're not gonna,
hopefully,
we're not gonna have an exclusive fire department, but we will meet and we can vote on this budget.
Not to say this hasn't been fun.
My beard's getting
Yeah, we really love talking to you.
Yeah.
So,
I'll bring coffee
what's
myself.
the will of the committee? Do we wanna take this out and reduce the budget?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I would,
I don't think it's a big deal, and if it comes up,
It's
somebody
important.
asks in the time, well, it is, it's more for the principle. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I
So, I mean,
may.
the selectmen don't have to change it, I mean, and they can explain that this was discovered and they're happy with it. Okay, yeah.
I need a clarification, are we gonna take the 6,000 off from legal as well, so it'll be 8,000 we take out?
The 6,000 is out.
There's no 6,000.
6,000 is
out.
Okay.
We're voting on your budget.
I know, okay, that's all, just to make sure, all right, I was confused,
Okay.
long night, I'm
All right,
gonna
so
bed by
let's-
now.
We can do that at the end, okay? I wanna get through this, and then when we get to fine, we'll do an amendment for a new amount, okay? And remember, but this was just getting carried over the public hearing. Okay, anything else on that page? About the last page?
Yes, that was one of the items, Norm, that we had in question.
What was that?
The,
681.
681 protective clothing?
yes, and you first take a moment, please, and read our asterisks, our explanation.
Red?
The red?
Yes, and then I can explain that.
Is that also known as bunker gear?
Yes.
Yes,
So,
I think.
so you're recommending 30,000
But we have a concern.
about all this money spent previously?
Yes, 2017, 17,000, 18, 20,000, 19, 13,000, for a total of 51.
Okay.
If we add the 30, that's $81,000 that's been spent since 17. We asked and have not received, we wanted to see a spreadsheet that covered the service life for the items purchased, starting in 2017, 2018, 2019. We received information of how many were expiring this year. We have no clue how many were bought in those previous years, and we have no clue what the expiration date is. That was our concern.
Okay.
We still haven't got the explanation.
Is that something you guys can do?
Correct.
It makes sense, it's a lot of money and you spent a lot, so I guess they wanna know what you bought, what condition it's in.
Right, so just roundabout, a set of bunker gear is just over $4,000.
Okay, yeah,
And it has to be fitted to that person.
that's fine. It's basically something like this, I mean, I think they just want a sense of what you spent the past 3 years and what you're gonna spend that 30,000 on.
Just include all those equipment, EJ, please.
Okay, one of the.
Include the clothing, EJ. In other words, the protective hat, the gloves, or the boots. And give us a date when they were purchased, when they're expiring, so that we can understand what's happened to the money.
I will gladly take care of it.
Does some equipment, clothing get damaged during firefighting? You have to replace it?
All right, and that's,
Back in, this reminds,
Yeah.
you may remember Kay Akeley, but probably nobody else in the room may. And her and Larry Wall, every year, 30 years ago, used to go around and around on bunker gear. And Kay, every single year, they came in.
But it was, Jack, in all fairness, every year when Kay would bring it up,
Yep.
she would bring up a valid point. She was trying to get Larry to say, yes, we purchased this many sets of gear, this many sets of gear had to be, were out of date and had to be replaced.
So you probably.
And it was back
a
and
few
forth.
people in this room
It
may
was
remember
it was
that.
between Larry Wall and Kay Akeley, and it was, you'd sit there and go, Not again.
It's like the coast bus.
But I understand,
Modern day coast
so it
bus.
comes up, I understand what Stan wants, and we'll have that done.
Is it okay?
No.
Sir, I will do my best to get it to you within the next 7 business days. It's gonna take me a little time, but I'll get it to you.
So
If you
I'm
have any
gonna-
questions, please call.
Absolutely.
So this is important, I'm gonna assume that you folks will do it, and if we approve the selectmen's budget, it'll be with that contingency.
Yep.
Because if it raises a question at the public hearing, then things could change. Okay, anything else on the last page?
Alarm maintenance. Same thing, we spent, the actual
Way over.
was what, over. 2019 budget was 9,400, then we went under. We think 9,400 is a fair number.
So we have a new vendor,
That's their,
that's the
that's
cost.
their cost.
It might be just a little bit under that, but yes.
Great.
AJ, that's the,
Man,
Anything else on
we got rid of that one.
on the last page?
no, so,
What, if we had done, what I'd like to do is come up with a new motion, that our budget will be $2,000 less than the selectmen's budget. Did we have an initial motion?
No,
No.
Didn't.
No, we
Okay, so
didn't.
good, so after our hearing,
You did have an initial motion.
and it was for the press,
Oh, yeah,
selectmen's
right.
fund.
Yeah,
That's what I thought, okay.
Yes, you did.
What we need now is an amendment to that motion to reduce the bottom line to, the $1,916,000.
Right.
Okay,
I'll
is
second that.
there a second? Okay, we're gonna vote on the motion, and then we'll vote on the original
Who
motion.
did the
amendment.
first? I'm sorry, who did the first? Brandon, thank you.
Okay. So, all those in favor of the motion to reduce the, recommendation to the new figure, $1,916,762. Raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstention. Okay, we're ready to vote on the final motion, which is essentially re-voting this number. So the amended initial motion is that we will put forward to the town the amount of $1,916,762.
Was that contingent on the protective clothing?
yes.
Yes.
Yes, but that's an understanding, 'cause this is
And that's a 9% increase from last year,
yeah, it'll not change the percentage.
9+%.
So out of that though,
9.5.
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big change.
7.64% of that was wages and healthcare and.
Majority were.
So let's do the vote, I'm not sure we voted yet. Okay, Jamie, can you vote?
I'd like to vote.
Okay, all in favor of the bottom line?
Is this to adjourn or?
We're almost done, hang with me. Okay, all in favor of $1,916,762? Aye. Okay, so the report to the town will say that we found $2,000.
Yeah, Jamie, 10,000 added for building the ambulance, too, that's what.
Any further business?
That's another good.
We gotta do the audit.
Oh, other business? What, audit review? Final audit discussion, okay. Thank God we got for the budget. Oh, right, now, I'm gonna, do we have a copy of that? There are a lot of things there about recommendations and things.
Final response, is that what you? Take mine if you want.
So what I guess we want to do is go through this fairly quickly and see where we stand, okay? Our concern is simply that, you know, the money we recommend to the town and the town votes for is spent properly. So maybe the selectmen just go over briefly where we stand with these?
Are you now speaking to the response that the fire board wrote to the audit?
Okay, fine.
That's what
Yeah.
we're addressing?
Okay, yeah.
Yes, we do have concerns,
Okay,
And starting in the first paragraph, not going through each and individual ones, let me just say, the chief's process is fine, and we're pleased with that. We welcome it. The concern rests with the Fire Board of Engineers. They need to review and sign off on time cards, purchase orders, schedules, everything that has not occurred to date that we have asked for.
Okay,
Now,
So-
maybe, okay, so is that something you're able to do?
So,
the Fire Board.
if you look at the original report from the auditor, and I'm sorry, I don't have a copy of it in front of me.
Here it is right here.
No, that's fine.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry. So, essentially what they brought up was they needed calendars, time cards, all those things. Previous calendars used to be done on, essentially, if you go to Google Calendars and just, or like a blank calendar that you can write on, that's how the schedules used to be done. In pencil, essentially. So we stopped doing that back at the beginning of this year, when I pretty much took over that type of stuff, with Darren being out. We created a Google Docs online. Everything is online, everything's backed up, only certain people can, everybody can look at it, but only certain people can adjust things in it.
That's not the question that we have,
I
though.
understand that, but I'm getting to it. So that's all there. The auditor was fine with that, loved the idea. Time cards now come across the street, they've been coming across the street pretty much all of last year. Cindy and I sat down, we worked out whatever we needed, we got everything done, spreadsheets, all the time cards now come across the street.
Right.
As far as some of the other stuff that's on here, which is a little further down, the sick and the vacation time, all of that stuff is now over here, and it's printed on the time card stubs, it's on the pay stubs. So there's nothing out in the open. As far as the POs and everything, we've changed the fact that before, when we'd have our monthly meeting, whatever, depending on if it was over a certain amount of money, I would go ahead and purchase whatever. They would sign the POs at the meeting. Now, anytime I need to purchase anything, they all get emails, they all reply back that they accept it. The PO gets written in, and then when they come in, they sign it. So it's not like I'm going out and purchasing anything, and then they're finding out about it at the monthly meeting.
Got it?
So, I mean, okay, so I guess my question is, are you guys able to see that this is happening to your satisfaction?
With the fire chief, we're requesting that the fire board actually do their job and review and sign off, initial, all of that material coming over. It's a check and balance.
Well, okay, does it come over electronically now? or how does
So
it send?
everything comes over electronically, and the auditor never said.
The
that
auditor did not audit that.
Board
and
needs
order.
to
Okay,
sign
let's,
the time
okay,
cards.
let's not debate this, I just wanna find out.
I'm
So
looking
how,
at it.
fine, how, I mean, how do we, I guess there needs to be a way of.
So
knowing
essentially,
some
so
sort
on
of
the time
protocol.
card right now, you're working your shift, you're the firefighter, your officer is responsible at the end of the shift to make sure that your time card is taken care of, it's on there correctly, and it matches the calendar. At the end of the 2-week cycle, because we get paid bi-weekly, the lieutenant again verifies that the timesheet is filled out and matches the calendar. Once that's complete, he signs it. Everything then goes to Lori, our administrative assistant. She goes through everything, makes sure everything is good, everything matches the calendar. She's all good to go, it gets put on a spreadsheet, and then it comes to me for signing. I check the things.
Yeah.
Everything's good to go, then it gets emailed across the street, and the hard copies also come across.
And you sign it,
Yes,
but the board of selectmen don't sign it. I mean, I'm sorry,
just like,
fire engineers
correct,
don't.
just like the police commissioner doesn't sign the PDs.
That's what we're asking for. Given what we went through this last year, we thought it would be prudent, and we requested this 2 years ago, that you review them and sign off. If nothing else, you get a good handle on what's happening in the department. Secondly, and most important, with the emails should be attached to the purchase orders. The auditors asked for the file and could not get all the emails. There were 89 out of 112 purchase orders questioned. So if most of it's being done by emails, the emails should be attached to the purchase order or put in a file for verification that they were approved before purchase.
So that adjustment came, as far as with the emails, with the auditor. that we chatted about it, if this process would work, that we do the emails, they said yes. So that's the change when that happened. Before that, it wasn't, so,
Right,
but even out of those, all of those POs that were questioned, nothing came of it, there was nothing
no,
wrong.
there was nothing that did not match. There was nothing that did
Okay,
not
so
have a
what,
PO.
what we're concerned about is the current process.
Right,
So
exactly.
everything that we've
That's-
done, and I've explained to the auditor as he sat there right next to me, he was fine with the new practices that we were doing, the time cards, the calendars, the way overtime's, tracked and calculated, the vacation, the sick time, everything he was on board with and fine with.
Again, that's not the issue.
What's the issue?
The issue is the Fire Board of Engineers has the responsibility to govern that department.
Okay,
Which
so,
and to
all right,
oversee
now,
it.
this, we're not a government board, that's the town, but, but the point is there a way that, how do we know that the three of you engineers are monitoring this? Is there?
At the monthly meetings, cause we go through the line items of the
Right.
contract, or through the budget. But I guess it's one of those things that I understand past issues there was, I get it.
Right.
Completely on board with it.
Passed,
Just like you've said before, give me this year to get through this, make the changes that need to be changed. There's transparency everywhere, my door is always open, I don't care who it is.
Mhm.
You all have my phone number, you all have my email, you all know where I am. Ask, I will answer and show you anything you wanna see.
Okay, let's not make any
May-
talking
may I-
about it now.
May I ask a question in terms of best practices from other local fire departments? In terms of, do their board of fire engineers sign off on time cards and the things that you're talking about?
There are very few fire departments that have board of fire engineers. Most
Right.
report directly to the selectmen in town.
and
Yes,
And what I can say is, there are already 4 layers of checks and balances before our material comes to the finance department over here. And that's the 5th layer. If in fact I was signing off on the lieutenant that approved it, the shift supervisor that approved it, the chief that approved it, the administrative secretary that approved it, and mathematically it all matches, what I would be approving is math. That it is correct, it matches, and there's already 4 layers of supervision that have done that.
That's fine, and we accept that. Just sign off on the papers that are kept in your place and sign off on the purchase orders that you see them. That's what we're
Yes,
asking.
they already do.
We do.
I think maybe you're talking about purchases.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, okay, go
Just-
ahead.
So, would the board of selectmen be comfortable if that at the monthly meeting, the board of fire engineers get a report of hours worked for each individual and they sign off on that instead of a weekly payroll sheet?
No, we're saying the bi-weekly payroll sheet, the vacation time, the purchases, and the sick time should be individually reviewed by the Fire Board of Engineers. The selectmen review every single purchase order, no matter if it's $10 or $10,000.
As do
And
we.
sign off.
As do we.
Okay, well,
We have not seen that, Ian.
Well, okay, but they say they do it, so what we need to do is a way that you can be assured that they do it. And maybe
Yes.
at the monthly meeting is a reasonable, obviously you have to look at them more regularly than that.
We do.
But maybe at the monthly meeting, they could certify that they've seen everything.
That would be good, because
Okay.
that's doing their job.
Well, their role shouldn't be to check the math of 4 different people that came before them, but it
Right.
should be to say, in our grand scheme of things, why did we pay this much in overtime this month?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Right, so.
Exactly.
So
More
would it
administrative
benefit
position.
then if, cause we only meet once a month, the whole, all 3 of, that we at our meetings that we meet, the chief presents a report to us for the following month. We go through it, if we have any discrepancies or anything, we turn and question him, and then we sign off on that, that's what you wanted.
John, that would be good, but I don't think it's unreasonable to do it bi-weekly.
Okay.
Pay period.
You know, that's between you.
That's an internal thing.
You know, that's not our thing. It sounds like you both have a reasonable system of control, it's a matter of agreeing whether you want to bi-weekly or monthly.
And
And I don't think that's our purview, but yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I think a lot of this is in our purview, but the auditor's report specifically says Additionally, we recommend the fire board of engineers review all time cards and overtime
Right.
on a monthly basis,
Right,
which would provide the fire board of engineers information on how the
Right.
department is operating.
Which
And
we
that's what
talked
you're
about.
doing?
and
Right,
that's,
that's what we do.
the moment this report came back, we implemented everything. As a matter of fact, this audit, the selectmen requested an audit starting at what month?
2018.
October.
Yeah.
We backed it up to January to have a more comprehensive time period. By the time this came back with the auditor, we were already implementing,
If they weren't already done.
if they weren't already done, what the auditor said. And every month at the Board of Fire Engineers meeting, we receive a budget to date. What's spent, what's here, what's there, what's the percentage, including payroll, overtime, holidays, sick, so on and so forth.
So it sounds like.
Put the initials.
No, I'm gonna hold you off for a second. It sounds like the issue now is that the auditor said a monthly review. It
Right,
sounds like
they
what
did.
they're- You are reviewing the purchase orders as they're made by email,
They get a heads up on email just for the even approval.
and then they review.
And then once
them
they're
on a monthly
approved.
basis. Yeah, I mean, in my view, I mean, I'm not the committee, but in my view, if you do a monthly review and the selectmen have signed over, you sign it, you've reviewed all of these
Right.
things. And as Brandon said, it's not the math,
No.
it's the overall supervision.
Which is
That's
why we get the
civilian
budget to
leadership.
date every month.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
I think that would do it, but it has to be clear.
Right.
So the selectmen say, yeah, okay, they've done it.
We've been doing it,
So
yes.
it's fine, so it's a monthly, maybe something's getting lost going across the street.
It's,
But
you know,
that's
John,
what we're looking
it's
for.
kind of time to go home, but why don't we do this? Contact Martha, Martha will outline everything that we're looking for, and let's go at it.
Do you still do blanket POs?
Sure do.
Yes.
BPOs.
Blanket POs, just like the electric bill every month, there's certain repetitive bills, so,
Oh,
okay.
beginning
Are
of the
you,
year.
I mean, I think everybody's in good faith here.
Mhm.
And it's a matter, it sounds like now it's working with Martha to have some sort of a system where they can see that you signed up.
Correct, that's correct.
And that's, so if you guys are willing to both, all work on that, I'm confident.
Take care of it.
But anyway, how about the rest of the board? Anything other questions on the audit? This is, the last year was a rough year in the fire department, everybody knows this.
I guess I don't understand how this is a budget committee matter.
Well,
I mean,
it's
it's an
not
administrative
really,
matter.
it's, the only connection we have is that it's related to money. So, I mean.
I mean, then we're losing it.
You went around when we did.
Well, we don't have any authority to tell them what to do. All we can say is that we believe that the controls, the budget we're recommending has the controls that was explained to us, but it's not our responsibility to do the control.
That's why we said trust and verify.
Trust and verify is fine, and so
We lost $2 million.
we're trying to just verify on our end.
The one concern I have,
Mhm.
just from stepping back, and, I don't, the details of the audit, the details of the audit, et cetera, I'm not gonna talk about, but I would imagine that those things, once they're implemented, are going to save money for the town, correct? That's the
They're
point of
really-
doing this, right?
they're-
To do things a little bit more efficiently,
Somewhat,
try to
but
save money.
yes.
But
on
the
some
budget is
processes.
9% greater this year than last year, so wow.
Okay,
That's just an
Okay.
observation.
all right, fine, yeah, we voted on that.
I
agree with
understand.
you, it's a lot of money.
Yes,
It's 9%.
yes, we just wanna make sure that we keep the dollars.
Sarah, I have a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Any favor, all right, that is non-debatable. Vote down, we'll keep talking. All in favor?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, sir. It's a great welcome. So you guys are looking for everything from 2017 on, all the purchases from that, on the gear, is that what you guys are doing?